I couldn't. Okay to start. What? I'm okay to start. Or do you want to be here? I'm okay to start. Do you need to be here? Yeah.
No, I'm just
Okay. 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 The time is 7:05. The seventh meeting of council is called to order. We'll proceed with the land acknowledgement. Western University is situated on the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Lenape, and Attawandaron peoples, who have longstanding relationships to the land and region of southwestern Ontario and the City of London. The local First Nation communities of this area include Chippewa of the Thames First Nation, Oneida Nation of the Thames, Munsee Delaware Nation. In the region, there are 11 First Nation communities and a growing Indigenous urban population. Western values the significant historical and contemporary contributions of local and regional First Nations and all of the original people of Turtle Island, also known as North America. Okay, we'll now proceed with the approval of the agenda. So as it stands on the agenda, this meeting will have the 2-minute speeches from our VP candidates. And the next meeting will begin with our EDID strategic plan presentation. That is happening at the beginning of the second part of this meeting. And then for our motions, we have the executive reports from GNF. We have the motion regarding council approval of USC budget and the motion to request financial presentations from Western Gazette, Marching Band, and Radio Western. We'll then have two UA motions, which is the motion to approve policy recommendations and the motion to improve USC and HBK relationships. And then at the beginning of the second part of this meeting, we'll have an additional for election motion to elect counselors to the Student Rental Experience Working Group. All right, that is everything as it stands. Can I get a mover for this? Is there, we need to move. Ayala, right? Okay. Ayala and then seconder, Counselor Kermack. Questions? Okay, if there are no questions, are there any amendments? Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to amend the agenda to include a presentation from USA, Executive Director and President.
20 minutes.
20 minutes?
Okay. President Ajak is the mover. Is there a seconder? Counselor Slawowski. Are there any questions on adding to this, the USA presentation to the agenda in this meeting, correct? At the beginning of this one. Okay, if there are no questions, are there any points of debate to adding this to the agenda? If there are none, please raise your placard if you are opposed to adding this to the agenda. Okay.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Okay. This amendment stands. Okay, are there further amendments to be made? Yes, Counselor Crowe.
Presentation to be added to the agenda for 20 minutes. The presentation titled HBK Soft Presentation, which will be led by our HBK Softs.
Okay, is there a seconder? Counselor, can you say your last name into the microphone, please?
Counselor Rudranantha.
Okay, perfect. Are there any questions on this amendment? If there are none, are there any points of debate to this amendment? Please raise your placard if you're against. This amendment also stands. Are there any further amendments to be made at this time? Okay, if there are no further amendments to be made, please go to Echo 360 to vote. The agenda stands as amended. We'll now move on to approving last meeting's minutes. Is there a mover? Counselor Leokakos, is there a seconder? Counselor Kermack? Are there any questions on the meeting minutes from last meeting? If there are none, are there any objections or points of debate on the meeting minutes from last meeting? If there are none, please go to Echo 360 to vote. The minutes are approved. No comments from the chair, and we don't have a board report today. So we'll move on to our first presentation, which will be the USA presentation.
Thank you, Anne. What a welcome. Wow. Oh my gosh. Yeah, let's take your time. Hello, everyone. Okay. Hello, good evening, everyone. Happy Valentine's Day. Thank you for having us at your council meeting tonight. My name is Vivian. I am the president at the Ontario Undergraduate Student Alliance.
And my name is Malika. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the executive director at USA, which is the Ontario Undergraduate Student Alliance.
Okay, so we are comprised of 9 student associations across the province. So on the screen, you can see the 9. So we have Laurentian, we have Queens, Trent Durham, Ontario Tech, McMaster, Waterloo, Laurier, Brock, and of course, Western.
This is excellent.
Oh, yeah. that's-
Okay, so basically what we are is we are a student-driven collaborations and governments from across the province. So the image you just saw with the maps is all the schools that are a part of our organization. And what we do is we come together and we develop policy solutions to the government to make sure that your post-secondary education as students is affordable, accessible, of high quality and accountable. So that's the main thing that we do, but there's a lot more that we do as well.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, so the core activities that we do is that we conduct research, we develop informed substantive policy papers that are written by our student authors from the 9 student associations. We lobby to the provincial government to enact these changes, and we represent the student perspective throughout the sector through various means of lobbying and meetings.
So we have quite an extensive policy library, and I'll plug that all of the policy papers that are on the screen right now are all student authored and all student ratified. So we don't do anything without that student-centered stamp of approval, which is a basic principle of our organization. So in total, we have 22 policy files in our library, and they range from a wide range of topics like racism, okay. Racism, student financial aid, mental health. So basically, if there's anything you can think of about your post-secondary experience that is bothering you or that you feel needs addressing, we probably have some sort of advocacy on it. So it's very, very extensive. And what we do is we take the stances that are in these recommendations and we use them to inform our advocacy. So when we have a meeting with a government MPP, or if we have a meeting with a stakeholder or any sort of decision maker at the provincial level, this is what we rely on in order to advance our advocacy. So some other things that we do in addition to our provincial lobbying is we stay connected to the broader sector. So we write op-eds if it's appropriate in like public media. We have a blog that we maintain on our website. So we try to encourage students to write for it. Again, if there's anything that you really want to write about and kind of speak and have a platform to talk about a post-secondary issue, please let us know. You can email info@usa.ca. We're always happy to take student submissions for our blog. And then we also engage with traditional and social media to cater to a wide variety of audiences that follow our work. We engage students, of course, we're very student driven. And we also engage the broader public through campaigns on student issues. So Viv is going to go over some examples, or I might go over some examples in a few slides on some campaigns that we've done. But again, we want to stay as connected to students as possible and show them the work that we're doing and get them involved in the work we're doing. And then we also conduct conferences to engage and educate students. So we have our general assemblies, which you might have heard about, where we offer students the chance to come and speak about these papers and give their feedback on the wide variety of policy papers that we have, and incorporate that feedback again to really drive like the student-centered nature of our work.
Yeah, so our structure, actually, we have the students being like the main focus. We represent 160,000 students across the province. Then we have our General Assembly, like Malika has mentioned, where we have delegates who are elected or chosen through their different delegations, and they come to attend to talk about these policy papers. Then we also have our steering committee, which is our board of directors, which Emily, lovely person over here, sits on. And then we have our executive team, which Emily and I also sit on as well, which is our president, VP Finance, and VP HR. And then finally, we have our home office team, which is our full-time staff, which includes our executive director, Malika. We have 2 research policy analysts and our operations and communications coordinator as well. And just honing in that everybody's holding themselves accountable to each other, but most of all, it's to the students at the end of the day. So here's a wonderful picture of us at our General Assembly 2 years ago in the fall at Laurentian. Oh, this Queens. Oh my gosh, I can't even see. Oh yeah, okay. So this was like the last spring General Assembly. And then the next one that's upcoming is happening at McMaster University from March 7th to 10th. So stay tuned on our social media if you want to know more about the policy papers that we're writing there. Okay, like I said, there's our wonderful steering committee, which is our board of directors. We have 10 people who sit on our board of directors. There's 9 voting members, and we have an extra one from Queens to be our wonderful resource member. Again, like I said, Emily sits on our board of directors as our VP Finance as well.
So this is the fee that students pay into USA as a part of your ancillary fees. It's a very nice solid number of $3.44. So this helps drive all of the work that we do to ensure that student voices are being adequately reflected in our provincial lobbying. So basically for like the cup of a coffee is you get a lot to be able to have your voice elevated and have a good platform on a provincial level to the government. And what does this money get you? So a lot of things. It gives you the ability to set USA's priorities and goals. So again, through Emily sitting on our board of directors, we have somebody who represents the Western voice and is able to set our strategic vision in that way. It provides leadership in the province. Again, like we're a student group, we are a student group, and we're one of only like a handful in the province that are able to do the work that we do. So it gives you a really good voice at the provincial table. You get access to decision makers through the steering committee and the way that they use the student voice to carry through your concerns about your education and also the recommendations that USA has to them. There's a bunch of resources and assistance that we can provide. There's best practices sharing because we are very engaged with the sector. So there's a lot of different stakeholders that we work with, people like faculty, researchers, university admin. And so we're able to provide best practices and also, again, share that student perspective and tell folks like what students are struggling with, even if they're not provincial decision makers. And again, like we have opportunities for students to write blogs and write articles and also internships, which we're going to get to in a little bit. And I'll also plug a little call out for article writing. We have a publication titled Habitats, and that's about town and gown affairs. And that is completely student authored. So again, if you are interested in that, you can email research@usa.ca. And they're currently doing a call out for authors on that. So this is an example of one of our campaigns from the fall. It is the Orange Shirt Day campaign, and we did that to raise awareness about how to better support Indigenous students in post-secondary education, because I'm sure you know there's a huge amount of barriers for equitable access for Indigenous students across our province. And so this was a way to raise awareness about how to address those issues using the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's recommendations. So what we did for this campaign was we got I believe she's an Anishinaabe Indigenous student who studies at Laurentian. Her name is Paige Chartrand, and she's an Indigenous student artist. So we commissioned her to design the art on the left-hand side of the screen. So the two hands holding the orange heart with the border of orange flowers around it. And it says every child matters in English and in French. And so we had her design that, and then we put that onto little pins, which are on the right-hand side, that we distributed across our member schools. And so during the Truth and Reconciliation Week and on Orange Shirt Day, we had that campaign just kind of like on social media mostly. We had members of our board offer land acknowledgements that were a bit more critical and a bit more insightful, I guess, and we had our board, I guess, turn inward and think a bit more critically about land acknowledgements. So that was what we did for that campaign. And then this is an example of a campaign we did last year. So this was about the OSAP clawbacks. I don't know if you know, but the provincial government took away a bunch of money from OSAP funding. It's somewhere close to $400 million. So what we did was we had a campaign to ask the government to reinvest that money. And so the spin we put on it last year was to talk about housing. And so we had, it was a social media campaign. We used quotes from a survey that we run every 2 years. And so we kind of highlighted like how students are struggling with housing and affordability. So there's an example on the screen that one of our students said, "I'm grateful that OSAP covers the cost of my tuition, but I'm still left working 2 jobs while enrolled full-time in order to pay my rent and eat." So just to show like how dire the situation is for students.
Okay, so next you see some of the internship capstones. So like Malika said, we do have internships applications open right now. So if you go on usa.ca, you can apply. If you're interested in working with us in the summertime, we have the advocacy and communications intern, which is something I did 2 years ago. And you can see my capstone project actually on the screen. And you can see one of the research intern and the research project that she just launched actually that just came out within like the last week or two. That's from 2 years ago. So she did a research paper on why you should care. And finally, there's another capstone project from our recent advocacy and communications intern, and they did a podcast. So that could be found on our social media, on our Instagram as well. So it's a great opportunity if you're looking to find something to do this summer.
We're a really cool group.
Okay, so other things like we said that we engage with different government stakeholder relations. So this past summer, Malika and I had the honor to meet with Minister Jill Dunlop, and that is one of the things that we did to discuss our advocacy priorities, which I will touch on later in the presentation. There's a meeting over here with the MPP, Peggy Sattler, and she is the critic for the colleges and universities. Emily and her team got to meet with them during our student advocacy conference, which is held at the end of November, which is, yes. Yes, we spend a whole week lobbying again about these advocacy priorities that our board establishes every year.
And just to add on to that, so MPP Sattler is an MPP local to your region. She's the MPP for London West. So someone who knows about the issues that you're going through and cares about the issues you're going through.
Here's another picture. There is MPP Mike Schreiner, who is the Green Party leader. And then next we have MPP Samji, and he is from the Liberal Party. All that to say is that we meet with people who are from all different political parties, and we are nonpartisan, so we remain neutral and make sure that we work with everybody from the government. So the last person that I will plug in here is the Deputy Minister of Colleges and Universities. We had multiple conversations with him in the last while talking about housing and accessibility.
And meeting with the deputy minister. So he is somebody who works on the bureaucratic side of the government. So even though he's not like an official decision maker, he is somebody who informs the decision makers and provides them with strategy and suggestions for how the minister and the minister's office can make policy decisions. So it's another good way that USA uses our avenues of advocacy and how we find different tactics and strategies to be able to advance our work. So this is an example of a tweet that came out a few years ago. So the minister at the time was Ross Romano. And this is an example of USA's advocacy in work and an advocacy win for us. So this was around 2021. What happened was basically the Ontario government amended a legislation that made university sexual violence policies more trauma-informed and survivor-centric. So they used USA's advocacy and they name drop us in the press release about the changes that they made to ensure that the questions that are being asked to any survivors of sexual violence incidents are trauma-informed and survivor-centric to just make the process a bit more comfortable and safe for survivors. So that was a huge win for us at the time because it was a file that had been worked on for a while. So we were really pleased to see that change from the government.
Oh yeah, so finally, our advocacy priorities for this year, like I said, is established through our board of directors during our strategic planning conference that takes place in June. So the 4 issues that we felt like was the most pressing and that we wanted to advocate for this year is housing and transit, I can't even read, mental health with a racial equity focus, food insecurity, and sector sustainability. So the very high level things that are we didn't put the specific recommendations for time's sake, but for housing and transit, we are talking about landlord accountability and transparency, making sure that there is specific housing loans so we can build student housing, building affordable and accessible transit system, including conversations around disability and making sure that that's also part of the accessibility conversation. For mental health, like I said, is a racial equity focus and making sure that those who identify with it as BIPOC or to us LGBTQIA, we just want to make sure that they have the supports that they need. And food insecurity is just supporting the student food banks and funding them so they can have the infrastructure they need to better support students. And then finally, with sector sustainability, I'm sure, as you know, there's a lot of universities that are running into deficit and understanding that the government's not funding and supporting our current institutions, and just making sure that with the Blue Ribbon Panel report has been out recently, we just want to make sure the government is taking action on that. I don't know if you have anything. Okay, wonderful.
Okay, this is a very terrible image of some of our publications and milestones over the past few years. It hasn't been updated clearly because the last date is from 2021, but I'll plug, I guess, some of the highlights from this, which are a couple. So in 2017, USA's advocacy directly influenced tuition policy in the province. So through our work, the government took our recommendations and created this program called Targeted Free Tuition, which basically provided low-income students with their OSAP loan, or I guess OSAP awards completely in grants. So it was essentially free tuition for low-income students, which was a huge win for accessibility and affordability for a group that's already underrepresented in post-secondary education. So that was a really great win for us at the time. And then in 2021, I think the same example of the Ontario regulation that was amended to be more trauma-informed and survivor-centric. But we also had some wins throughout the pandemic that saw increased financial support for students. So I think CESV was one of the things that USA helped support, and then also some mental health worker grant funding for campuses to be able to support student mental health care. And then this is another example of the way USA's advocacy has influenced provincial policy and how we change provincial policy. This is almost like a little mini online series of what provincial funding has looked like over the past several years and how financial aid has looked. And when you go onto this website, you'll basically see some old board members of USA who are speaking to how USA's advocacy has helped shape student affordability and access through some of the work that we've done, but also like the problems that existed within the provincial policies that led to that point and like the necessity for our advocacy to have like targeted free tuition. So it's just a cool example of like how USA got involved, and you can see the involvement of how USA's advocacy played out when tuition was being kind of remodeled and restructured at the time. Okay, and on that note, this is another example kind of showcasing and visualizing what that targeted free tuition program looked like and how it evolved through the policy process planning. So the image on the left is like a small little drawing of an USA brainstorm when folks at the time were thinking about what targeted free tuition could look like. It was then presented in USA policy in November 2015. And then in the budget, the provincial budget of April 2016, you can see the similarity in how in the graphs and how the distribution of funding should look across different income levels. So it's a clear like pipeline of here's USA's like research advocacy brainstorming work, and then how it actually made an impact in provincial policy legitimately.
And that's about it. So if anyone has any questions, we'd be happy to take them. Otherwise, feel free to keep in touch with us through the email at info@usa.ca or follow us on our social media, which is at USA Home. Thanks. Okay, I think we're done. I don't think there's some questions. Okay.
Great, thank you.
We will now have a presentation from the HBK Softs.
Great. Good evening, everyone. Hope you are all having a wonderful evening. We just wanted to start off by saying thank you so much for giving us the time and the space and the attention for us to come here and discuss something that means a lot to us and something that we are very passionate to be speaking upon. So before we begin, we're just going to go on with the agenda that we have prepared for our presentation. So first, we're going to start off with some introductions. We're going to introduce who the three of us are, our roles at HBK or Huron, Brescia, and Kings, and what we are representing today in this presentation. Then we are going to go on to talk about what orientation looks like as an affiliate. So what our O weeks look like, what the months leading up to O weeks look like, and what the roles of LST members look like as well. Then we're going to talk about the areas in need of improvement. So this is essentially where we feel as though we need more support from the USC, as well as the bulk of what our motion surrounds. Then we're going to go into the HBK letters that have been written by our own softs. Then we're going to go into the HBK clause that we have created. And then we are going to go into any questions. We'll open up the floor for anyone if anyone has any inquiries or any points of discussion, and then we'll end off with our end remarks. So to begin, we're going to start off with our introductions.
Hi, my name is Megan. I am the head soph at Huron. Just quickly, a little bit about myself. I have been sophing for the past 4 years. I've seen a bit of a mixed format with sophing taking place online as well as in person. And this year I had the honor of being Huron's head soph.
Right. My name is Melody. I'm the head soph over at Brescia. I started sophing in my second year, so I was hired as a first-time soph, got rehired as a returning soph, and then was hired as the head soph for this past week.
Hi, everyone. So my name's Miley. I'm the head soph at Kings. So last year I was a first-time soph, and this year I was able to be leading the team as head soph this year for the 2023-24 term.
All right, so I'm going to start us off by talking about what orientation looks like at an affiliate school. So first and foremost, kind of what our O weeks look like. So we plan, run, and organize all of the programming over at HB&K. So that includes home-based programming. We plan our own academic, faculty, and charity events. And we also work with our own residence councils to plan move-ins and residence events. So these all happen from the Sunday all the way to the Saturday of O week, just to the same duration as Western O week as well. We also like to encourage a team-based events. So all of our softs go through an interview process as a group and they get hired as a team. And we like to promote an equity-based environment to ensure that everyone feels included, everyone feels heard and supported as they go through the role of soft and orientation. We also like to encourage HBK support amongst the affiliates. So throughout campuses, we like to ensure that all campuses feel supported, whether it's softs, students, LST members, and we want to ensure everyone feels included and safe. And then lastly, we encourage respectful inter and intra-team environment and culture. So I've kind of been touching on those points for the past 2 points, but essentially we want to make sure that no matter what constituency students are coming from, that they feel heard and supported and can feel safe on our campus. In terms of LST roles, so those of you who do not know what LST stands for, it stands for leadership team. At King's, they call it an HST or a head soft team. And this is comprised of the head softs and the PAs or programming assistants that have been hired. So our roles at HBK are varying levels of responsibility. So first and foremost, we do take care of the training for softs. So some areas of training or throughout the year. So we have Spring Soft Orientation, which is called SSO. This happens in around March when softs are first hired. We also go through M Week and N Week training. So this includes the LST trainings and the soft team trainings that happen just prior to O week. And we also host retreats. So there's the LST retreats and soft retreats that happen within the months of May and June. And throughout all of these times, we train our softs and LST members as well for any training that is not hosted by any external trainers. So Safe Talk and GBSV training or gender-based sexual violence training is hosted by external trainers. We would take care of things such as EDID training, emergency protocols, soft rehearsals, and anything else that has not been covered that we feel is important. We also manage our own budget, so we allocate our budgets for programming, uniforms, and any costs associated with O week. We also work, manage, and organize and communicate our O week block schedules, O week finalized schedules, and also our soft schedules for our softs to know where to be at what time. We also coordinate events between campuses. So a traditional event at HBK is called a Philifest, and we kind of rotate between years as to who will be hosting. And we like to coordinate on these to ensure that everyone knows what to expect at these events, whether it's who will be participating, who will be running, what events will be held at a Philifest, and to ensure that everyone feels that they know what's going on and to feel safe. We also plan, design, and work on our uniforms. So that goes from contacting external vendors, designing our uniforms, and finalizing payments for them. We also work external and internal affairs. So this includes working with external vendors, as well as working in faculty and staff from our own constituencies, as well as other constituency, whether that be Western Huron, Brescia, or Kings. And last but not least, we support Western programming. So that includes any main stage events. So the majority of the week, we do go down to main campus to support main stage events. We also support late night programming, and we also ensure that we are performing walk homes for any students from any constituency.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about some of the areas of improvement that we feel need to be addressed by the USC. And these are different areas and gaps in the orientation program that have been mentioned year after year. But this is the first year that HBK has gotten together to create this clause to present to you today. Just to ensure the inclusivity of affiliates moving forward with the orientation program. We have some HBK representation on the USC Council this year, but we know for sure that this is not something that is going to be happening every year. So even though our term as head sauce is coming to an end, we still feel that there is a responsibility for us to take the action necessary and to ensure that we're making every decision in the best interest of our teams and the future generations of our softs. And also, we also feel that the USC should be advocating for all of the, advocating equally for all the students and student leaders that are on Western and the affiliates, especially the issues that are being brought forward to them. And additionally, to provide those resources or to provide the contacts that we need to ensure that we are getting the assistance that we are requesting. So this could be, for example, redirecting HBK to Western if that is not something under their portfolio. So moving on to the first area of improvement, I'm going to touch upon representation. So sorry if the mic is a little muffled. So we're just asking for better and more accurate representation on USC channels. So this is, for example, the Instagram as well as the O Week website. So in this, it also ensures equal exposure to main campus softs teams on the USC channels to make sure that the information provided is up to date, and also on the website as well. So it's a little hard to see right here, but we took some screenshots of the O Week website from the USC channels. And sorry, it's a little hard to see, but the Huron page just says up to date. So it doesn't have any information about which channels to go to or specifically what the LS team members' names are. For Kings, our uniforms change on a yearly basis. That is an important thing to note. So our uniforms this year was not updated on our website, and this creates a bit of a safety concern for our softs and our students. We will be talking more about that later on in our presentation. And again, it's hard to see, but our names are not up to date. So on the website currently, it has last year's LST members, so it does not include my name or my PA's names. And then for Brescia, again, uniforms are not updated. So again, another safety concern. And the LST names that are on the website are not for this year's team. So Melody and her PAs are not on that page. And as well as the Instagram page is not the correct Instagram to be directing students to for orientation purposes. So for our second area of improvement, we're going to be talking about communication. So this is obviously a really big part of orientation. A lot of different stakeholders are included, and we totally understand that. But we ask that USC is providing us consistent communication with the affiliates. There were certain times throughout the summer where we felt like we may have been excluded, and that just leaves us feeling like we are not the first priority. And even though we know that we are not followed under USC constituencies, and that we follow under our own student councils, we still feel like these are not excuses to be excluded by really important methods of communication. So for example, on the left right here, sorry, really hard screenshot, but you can see that we're not part of the Teams chat that the other head softs are included in. And the screenshot on the left, or on the right, sorry, it shows my OWL page, but you can see that we are not part of the orientation OWL site that Western puts up. And again, even though we know that the OWL page is not set up by USC, we still feel like USC should be advocating to include the three of us part of that, because there's definitely very important information that is put onto those pages, but we are not part of that. So we end up missing out some very important information about when we need to be supporting them, or any deadlines that we're going to be missing out on. So we expect moving forward that the affiliate softs are going to receive the same information at the same time as other head softs. This promotes a lot of opportunities for us to collaborate a bit more, to be more involved in any decision-making opportunities as well. And it eliminates any kind of misunderstandings or miscommunications between us and at Western. So this is just, in general, just a very important area of improvement that everyone should be part of. So third, we're going to be talking about team culture. Again, Melody said this before, but thank you for allowing us to speak to you today. But in general, HBK usually feels like there's a lack of support and an absence of community that is given to us as affiliates. This leaves us feeling very unappreciated, and also makes our teams feel really unsafe, unheard, and not valued when we are on campus supporting Western programming. So the main stage programming, like we mentioned earlier. So we asked for better implementation of affiliates by focusing part of the soft training on behavioral changes to demonstrate respect towards all teams. Like Melody mentioned beforehand, we offer an SSO training to our soft teams in March. And during that training, we go over the different types of softs. There are different types of responsibilities, but we know that those types of training is not given to the main campus softs. So a lot of the time there's miscommunication about what our roles are, what we even do, where our campuses are located. And again, this is a huge safety concern for our students and our softs. And also this demonstrates respect towards all teams and individuals, and reinforcing respect during O Week. Again, we find that year after year, we're being disrespected by main campus staffs and main campus students. And we feel like this is not the treatment that we deserve to have as student leaders. At the end of the day, we all want the same thing. We want to improve student experience, and we can't do that if we're not being included and we're not being treated and respected to the same degree as other teams. And last but not least, we're going to be talking about understanding. So we feel like there's a lack of basic understanding on Western's end of regarding affiliate orientation. So like Melody mentioned beforehand, we went over all of our specific roles and our different tasks that we do throughout the summer. These are different from main campus softs and their LSTs, and that's just how our constituencies kind of divide our roles. But again, it's extremely important to us that other teams are also understanding what our roles are. So like I mentioned, this is a safety concern. So if we're not teaching main campus softs where King's campus is located, for example, how can those students and how can those softs be like guiding those students back to their campus or back to where they need to be, or redirecting to the people that know those answers? So that's a huge safety concern if nobody knows who we are, not knowing our names or not knowing who to go to. And this was also extremely and incredibly disheartening for our softs. We put in a lot of time and a lot of effort to be supporting not only our programming, but also Western's programming. So we feel like it's really disheartening when we're not putting up, when we're not being appreciated to the same extent that main campus softs are. So moving forward, we hope that Western takes the appropriate efforts to educate themselves on the nuances of orientation week for the affiliate campuses. Again, this is something that is in the best interest of every team involved in orientation. This is not us asking for special treatment. This is not us asking to be treated any kind of better to any other teams. We're not asking for that. We just want to be given the same opportunities and the same treatment going forward. And we feel like this is a chance for a solution going forward with orientation.
I'm going to speak into this mic because I'm a little bit taller. So the HBK letters are a series of letters anonymously published that outline the frustration and disappointment that HBK softs have felt as a result of Western's lack of support and understanding of orientation for affiliate students. Within this presentation, we have included some of the statements present within these testimonials with the intent to highlight affiliate disappointment. The general themes of these testimonials highlight HBK exclusion, division between campuses, and a lack of recognition of HBK. These testimonials use students' perspectives from Huron, Brescia, and Kings to highlight how the affiliates are underrepresented, mistreated, and overlooked by Western. If you would like to access these letters, they will be available in the appendix of the motion being put forth. These are just some of the testimonials that we have included within this presentation. Of course, we've kept them all anonymous. So as such, the HBK softs of Huron, Brescia, and Kings bring forth a proposal addressing critical areas necessitating attention and refinement to elevate the orientation experience for incoming affiliate students. In particular, we are focusing on the facets of representation and communication to significantly contribute to cultivating a more positive and inclusive environment for all participating teams. Transparent and consistent communication from both USC and Western is fundamental to preventing misunderstandings and fostering seamless collaboration among teams. Furthermore, the cultivation of a culture of sophing that actively dismantles seniority and superiority complexes will indubitably contribute to heightened team morale and cooperation. The intent behind this proposed clause is to create a contract that holds Western accountable for their future treatment of the affiliates. Our hope is to successfully achieve the following two objectives, which include a better understanding of HBK orientation, as well as equal representation and treatment between the affiliates and Western soft teams. I hope that Western and the USC take the time to reflect on the complaints of the affiliate softing teams and work collaboratively with HBK towards the enhancement of the overall orientation experience. Thank you. And we look forward to answering any questions and concerns present at this time.
We can take questions if there are any. Go ahead, Councilor Kakos.
Thank you for your presentation. I just had a quick question. How was consults like with the USC orientation team prior to this motion?
Sorry, could you clarify that question?
Yeah, sure. Kind of like the discussion with before this motion with the USC orientation team. Like, have you guys reached out to them prior before bringing this motion forward to kind of like address these issues?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've had consistent meetings throughout the summer, whether it was with the president or whether it was with the VPs throughout the exec team. We've also had multiple email exchanges regarding just kind of like our needs. I feel as though sometimes we just didn't feel like we were getting addressed properly, or our needs just were not being met, which is why this motion is being put forward.
Oh, sorry, Councilor Lucis.
Can you provide clarification for the OWL page? You mentioned like wanting to be included on it. To my understanding of like being a soft, like it's mostly trainings and then like there are some communications, but based on you running your own training, you don't want to be absorbed by main campus training, but you would like to be included. Is that correct or not correct?
So the OWL page is an all-call OWL page, and by my understanding, from what I have heard from previous LST members, or I guess some like main campus softs or main campus head soft, it's an OWL page for all softs, all LST members. And that's where like usually the main channel of announcements get made for everyone to know what is happening or to get updated. So we weren't included in that page, so we didn't get any updates in terms of like, I don't really know what updates are getting on there. We weren't included in it, but any updates regarding O Week in general. In terms of training, we do host our own trainings because our own institutions just have their own protocols for our own campuses, such as emergency procedures. They sometimes look a little different than Westerns. However, I know Huron and Brescia this year went down to main campus for training with our softs. However, we found that the training just didn't necessarily pertain to our softs or didn't necessarily feel inclusive to our campuses.
Councilor Kermack?
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. I just had a quick question on some of like the more easier asks of the USC, specifically the ones where you were mentioning the uniforms not being updated on the website and proper names weren't there. What was your correspondence like with the USC prior to that? Like, did you receive like pushback or anything like that source? Maybe you met with silence.
So prior to O Week, our correspondence was mainly through the president and mainly through emails. Regarding social media, we have asked for more representation on social media channels just so that students could be redirected. Unfortunately, we're told that that was not possible because I think it just has never been done before. In terms of the O Week website, we were not told about the O Week website, whether or not that was updated, but we found that it just wasn't updated as we were doing research to create this motion.
Councilor Haug?
Hi, I'm just wondering about how much consultation you've done like with Western themselves outside of the USC and like their people and like because they also hold a lot of control over the orientation program.
Absolutely. So unfortunately, we don't know what supports to go to regarding Western. It's a little difficult for us because we normally get a lot of our communication via the USC. I think we have attempted to ask for supports to Western. We just haven't been given any resources or who to go to specifically. So I think if there is any matters regarding Western or if Western was in control of that, we would have loved to receive resources from them.
Okay, if there are no further questions, then let's give a round of applause for our presenters. Thank you, guys. Okay, budget motion. Yeah. How it's the motion? You didn't motion to add it. No, you didn't motion to add it to the agenda. It's not on the agenda. New business on the 28th. I'll take a rest. Yeah. Okay. We'll now hear from our VP candidates. We'll start with our EA candidate, which is Michelle, Johnson. Each candidate will have 2 minutes. After the EA candidate, we'll do the UA candidates in alphabetical order by last name. So they'll have 2 minutes for your consideration, and we'll go from there. So. Okay, awesome. Sorry. Start whenever you're ready.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle Watches Johnson. My pronouns are she, her. I want to start by thanking you all so much for your time and the opportunity to speak with you today. As your candidate for the Vice President of External Affairs, I'm sure you all have much better ways to be spending your Valentine's Day, but I really appreciate that you're here with me. I'm currently completing my 4th year of an honors specialization in political science, and I've spent the last year as one of your external affairs coordinators, which has given me the opportunity to meet with city councilors, prepare research ahead of stakeholder meetings, and co-author USA's GBSV policy paper. This work has been so incredibly interesting and inspiring, and it's provided me with a firsthand understanding of the mechanisms through which we do our advocacy. Leading this portfolio would allow me to channel my passion into making meaningful changes, directly addressing issues that matter with key external stakeholders, and ensuring that student voices are considered by decision makers in the policy process. Having seen the impact of effective representation and strong stakeholder relations, I'm driven by my desire to create meaningful change and enhance the student experience. In terms of my platform, I'm aiming to close the visibility gap between external affairs and our student body, as well as between external affairs and the rest of you in this room. I want to do this by improving our approachability and our engagement, allowing us to commit to more student-informed advocacy, as well as continuing to build on the strong governmental relations that my predecessors have worked to establish. I hope to advocate on issues of accessibility and affordability, with transit and housing being the 2 key concerns that have come up in every consultation so far. I would like to further advocate on diversified mental health supports, standardized GBSV training across the province, with a focus on weaving issues of equity, diversity, inclusion, and decolonization throughout this work. My full platform will likely be released next week, and I've spent the last several weeks prioritizing my consultations with all of you in this room, as well as those that will be occupying your spot next year. It's been an incredibly enjoyable process so far, and it's helped me in crafting a platform that feels informed by student voices. I'm incredibly excited to share it with you, and both before and after it drops, please don't hesitate to reach out with any thoughts, questions, concerns, even if we've already had the chance to chat. Thank you so much again for the opportunity today, and follow me on Instagram at votemwj.
Yeah. That was our one external affairs candidate. So now we'll be moving on to our university affairs candidates. Just a point of clarification, we'll be doing the Q&A session in the second half of this meeting, which will be taking place on the 28th. So we will begin with Mariana Batista.
Good evening, everyone. My name is, if I have not had the pleasure to meet you yet, my name is Mariana Batista, although I also go by Mari. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a 4th-year health sciences and psychology student aspiring to be your next USC Vice President of University Affairs. I want to first take a moment to congratulate the newly elected counselors and president. It takes a lot of passion and commitment to serve our student body in a role such as this one, and I'm positive you will all do great things next year. I began my journey at Western in 2020, back when the pandemic made many of us feel alone. Yet despite these challenges, I was lucky to discover a community that welcomed me with open arms and countless opportunities for growth. Since then, I've been inspired to give back to this community that makes this campus feel like my home away from home. Through my previous roles on the board of first years, Pride USC, the Elgin Soft team, the Arts and Humanities Students Council, and the Health Sciences Students Council, I discovered my passion for supporting students and uplifting their voices. My experience being on the USC and University Affairs Standing Committee as a counselor this year has shown me the profound impact that the student voice has in making positive change, and it has equipped me with the knowledge on how to effectively enact that change. A vice president of university affairs is a leader and liaison, but above all else, they are a listener. For this reason, I have been listening to students through ongoing consultations. I've built a platform reflective of the concerns brought up in these discussions. Academics, student experience, and outreach are the 3 core pillars this platform is built upon, each containing both short and long-term goals. I hope to work with you all to advocate for every student here to feel safe and have the support needed to thrive in and after their post-secondary journey. After all, students have the power to change the world, so let's change it together. Thank you.
Our next university affairs candidate is Jenna B. Croft.
Hello, I'm Jay or Jenna B. Croft, and it is an honor to stand in front of you as one of your candidates for Vice President University Affairs. I remember my first year, in my first year dorm at Brescia, seeing the Instagram announcement that the USC had secured a $800,000 commitment to the Free the Dot project and thinking, whoa, advocacy works, and there's opportunity here to make real tangible change. Since then, I have recognized that advocacy is a long game, one that builds on tangible policy shifts, honors the work of those before you, while also identifying gaps that haven't quite been tackled yet. Research, consult with students, propose shifts, negotiate with stakeholders, wash, rinse, repeat. This is a process that I've truly fallen so in love with throughout my 3 years here. During my time on campus, I have had the immense privilege of working on many teams and initiatives, such as the Western Senate, the Honorary Degrees Committee, the Undergraduate Subcommittee on Course Review, the Senate Operations and Agenda Committee, the University Accessibility Committee, the Brescia University College Students Council, the Climate Crisis Coalition, the Institutional Quality Assurance Process, and more recently on University Students Council as your Brescia counselor. These experiences have sharpened my ability to effectively engage with stakeholders, analyze and consult on policies, and champion progressive change, especially across academic, accessibility, inclusivity, and sustainability spaces. My platform includes initiatives like utilizing our policy to address religious discrimination, forming a Green Campus Advocacy Alliance, enhancing AI appeal transparency, and fostering Brescia integration support through a 1-year Brescia Bridge volunteer position. My platform also proposes a tangible aim to amplify USC voice on the Senate, increase visibility in the university affairs portfolio, and strengthen faculty council collaboration. I'm confident that if elected, I will continue translating my passion into actionable, feasible models and policy, while ensuring that student voice resonates powerfully in spaces of decision-making. Thank you for your time and for all of your support through consultations. It has been such a true honor to speak and represent all of you. Thank you.
We'll now hear from Siddharth Maheshwari.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. My name is Siddharth Maheshwari. I'm a 5th-year student in Governance, Leadership, Ethics, and Gender Studies. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm running to be your next Vice President of University Affairs because I think we can do more. Student government is intrinsically involved in many aspects of student life and student experience. However, students are usually quite unaware of this, and that leads them to believe that we don't really do a lot on their behalf. As a former counselor, this is really disappointing to me, and advocacy outreach as such is one of my main pillars. I think we're all here because of wanting to make big changes, and we usually run up against issues of feasibility. I believe that certain governance structure changes will give us the opportunity to make the big changes that we want to make. There's a precedent for this. The University of Waterloo, along with other student unions in Canada, have attempted to make such changes to their governance structures with limited success. However, I believe the state of student government, the state of the lives of students in general, is dire. This is also because of the issues that students face externally in their lives outside of students. While this is more to be addressed under external affairs, the University Affairs portfolio has to make more cognizance of the challenges that face students. And as such, my platform is based around the issues that intersect with students' lives and in their lives outside of students. This includes sustainability, mental health, food insecurity, affordability, and student safety, whether that be from a lens of racialized students or against gender-based and sexual violence. On continuing on that, I believe that we have to use our imagination and aim for the changes that we want to see. We have to understand that this is a long process and that feasibility does come into play when we talk about issues like bringing back self-reported absences or lenient policy on AI usage and scholastic offenses. However, this requires a skill to communicate with administration as well as students. As a former counselor, as an orientation leader, as an executive on clubs, and a member of various USC committees, as well as with my experience on faculty councils and 2 Senate subcommittees, I believe that I have the right mix of experience and imagination to achieve the goals that I have set out for myself and for student government. I thank the USC for its time, and I hope that this is something that we can build together and with pride. Thank you.
We'll now hear from Ankita Mishra.
Hello, Council. My name is Ankita Mishra. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm running for Vice President of University Affairs. 2 years ago, when I was just elected as Science Counselor, I never really thought myself taking a future with more advocacy work. But my role last year as Science Counselor and this year as AVP University Affairs, I've really come to appreciate advocacy work more. Additionally, I've gotten the privilege to sit on the Senate Review Board Academic and Senate Committee for Academic Policy this past year. These Senate committees are mainly made up of faculty members, and I used to think I'm just an undergraduate student representative. But I have learned that being an undergraduate student is nothing less than being a faculty member on these committees because we're all seen as equals. When I had something to say, I was taken seriously. Just last week, I had the opportunity to voice my opinions at a Senate committee meeting for why we shouldn't pass the motion to move fall reading week for the upcoming academic years. And I felt that I had a voice in these committees with these faculty members. Moments like this are what really motivated me to run for Vice President of University Affairs. I hope to continue to build these relationships with different Western admin to bring forward the student voice to Western. I was also a Purple Care trustee this past year, where I really saw the behind the scenes of our healthcare plan. Using these perspectives, my goal is to make my platform for VPUA short but doable. I hope to focus on advocacy to both Western admin and more awareness to students in the fields of academics, wellness, equity, as well as continuing to provide support and bridging the gap between UA and faculty councils. I hope to continue a lot of the meaningful work I've done this past year. And with that being said, I would like to thank everyone who took the time to consult with me, and I cannot wait to release my platform soon. Thank you.
Our final University Affairs candidate will be Eric Scarfone.
Hello, everyone. If you don't know me already, my name is Eric Scarfone, and I am running to be your next Vice President of University Affairs for the upcoming academic year. I am currently a fourth-year MIT student, so Media Information and Technoculture, and I just transferred in from Fanshawe last year. But despite my time here and despite the ups and downs that came along the way, Western has given me so much, and it inspired me to give back. Being involved in student council at the faculty level has really been an eye-opener, not just in terms of student issues, but in terms of interacting with the Western community, and that has inspired me to take on a larger role within the USC. As your next VP of University Affairs, whether your concerns are around gender-based and sexual violence, housing, sustainability, academic accommodations, faculty and affiliate representation, and equity, diversity, and inclusion, my plan is to give students choice and to hold accountability to the university to enhance the undergraduate experience. Whether these issues are big or small, they all contribute to your Western experience, and my mission is to be a mentor, a friend, and an advocate to all students to make your voices heard on the issues that you're facing right now by being as transparent and accessible as possible through ongoing feedback and accountability on my part. Listening to student voices and through consultations regarding these issues has impacting your university experience has inspired and motivated me as your candidate to turn words into action. If elected, I'm looking forward to making the student experience at Western the best we can be. We all thrive when we all work as a collective. Thank you all very much for your time.
Those are all of our candidates for the VP, and EA and UA position. We'll be doing the Q&A, like I said, next session on the 28th. Unless everyone wants a recess, we will move on to the exec reports. Okay, then I'll call a 10-minute recess. Please re-adjourn at 8:18. Please be seated. We'll now proceed with our motion to approve the executive reports. President Ajak is the mover. Is there a seconder? Counselor Uslis, exec, you have the floor.
Okay, good evening, council. I hope you guys enjoyed that little recess we had there. I just want to take a sec to echo what Mari said to each of the new counselors here and to my successor, Emily Kalajian. Massive congratulations, but I do actually want to be intentional with this. So let's give them a quick round of applause as counselor. It's been an absolutely historic election, so we're really excited for the years to come. So we're gonna jump right into it because you guys are gonna hear a lot from us. Okay, so if you guys have my updates up handy on your laptops, you'll see here that I've been working on the F 2025 budget ever since November. So it's been a 3-month long process that you'll hear later about in another presentation. So I'm gonna leave that off to the wayside for now. Yeah.
There's a point of information. I don't think we have access to the executive reports in the appendix.
Oh, no.
Sorry.
Real. I like that.
Okay.
Melissa saves the day yet again. Love it. Thanks, Stavros. So when you guys have that up, you'll see I have there the first thing on that point is F 25 budget, but that's going to be discussed later. The big thing that's just really excited for me as well. So what you guys may have seen on social media or in the posters that we put up today, USC entrepreneurship. This is one of my initiatives for my platform. So in partnership with the Morrisett Institute for Entrepreneurship, we will be facilitating a program for students to activate their entrepreneurship aspirations within the student body. So the goal here is to assist students in accelerating a service or product that better supports students during their everyday life, whether it be a service or product that supports students academically, financially, or just their general lifestyle. So we actually launched this last Monday, and applications close next Monday. So if you are a low-key entrepreneur and want to get excited about it, accelerating your business on campus, feel free to apply. And if you know someone, I'm looking at the Ivy counselors over there. If you know someone who has that, make sure they apply as well. And also, I did not mean to target you guys. Anyone can apply. Okay. Some key things here to highlight that actually, because I'm really excited about that. So in order to measure the success of a student group, they're going to need to meet the following units of measure. So sustainability, affordability, usage, big things that we advocate on every single day. Students who register are enrolled in a 1-day boot camp with Ivy level mentorship courses. So these things include building the right foundation, value proposition, assessing the market, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And winners can receive a cash prize of $500, $1,000, and $2,500. $2,500. So again, there's a monetary value of this as well. So why does everyone have roses? Specifically, what does social sci have roses? I love it. Okay, and just some general updates. Meredith can go deeper on this, some programming to look forward to later in the year. So just some big concerts we have planned and some mental health resource fairs. And to capstone all of this, some of my wins. The first one yesterday marks 1 year as president. It's been a very long and very short road, but it's full 365 in this position. So I'm really excited about that. Now, for those of you guys who watched the Super Bowl, Taylor's boyfriend won. Now I only said that because I wanted to relate to you guys. I love the Chiefs, so the Chiefs won, and it was a great one. I was actually celebrating in the wave, so really good show there. And last but not least, I started my new book today. So it's called The Art of Happiness by the Dalai Lama and Howard C. Cutler. So yeah, those are my wins, and that's my updates. So really short, but the budget's a really long presentation, so I'll talk a little bit later, but any questions across the board? Love to see it.
everyone. Happy Valentine's Day. Losing my voice, so just bear with me. So completed this month was Let's Talk Day. So we did a street style video for mental health, and we're just going to be talking about our recommendations. I'm hoping it's out in the next 2 weeks. We also did a video for ChatGPT and AI, kind of putting fun prompts that students can use as midterm and exam seasons coming up. So that will be out soon too. I was part of VP One-on-One and State of the USC. For accessibility coordinator, we're doing Instagram takeovers on Thursdays by people with lived experience. And we're also building a report on our accessibility survey that we conducted last semester. So the USC EDI committee, we have an upcoming event. I don't know if you have received the email invite. I could be wrong, but the Inspire event on March 3rd. Someone confirm, but I really hope to see you guys there. The committee's been working on this, and I think this is a great way to kind of learn what you can do as you're voting on so many different things. So it's always good to be informed. The LGBTQ plus stands, so that will be something I'll be talking about later as it's a motion today. I had a monthly meeting with Christine Stapleton, who's the head of the Sports and Rec, and also Steve Barry. So 2 years ago, there were an inclusion stance on the campus sports and rec. So I kind of went in and asked on the update on that. So I'm just going to be writing a short report and sharing it with you guys within the next week or so. And then also there's a consultation process. So right now they're going through putting up new signs and things, and I want you guys to be informed and also part of that process. I had a meeting with Ruben. So he's the person who kind of deals with the operating budget on the Western end. And we had a discussion on Free the Dot. And right now we're just figuring out how the future kind of looks like. So I'll get back to you on that for next month. I had an intro meeting with Safe Campus Coalition. And then the Fall Reading Week survey. So we had over 3,400 students respond. A Gazette article is out today if you want to learn more, but there was a SCAP special meeting on Friday, which they decided to do a 2-year trial phase, which is going to Senate tomorrow to be voted on. But I've attached the results and the questions that students saw. And then for ongoing, we're starting our first set of recommendations and consultations for the work integrated learning policy paper. Last time I got a lot of questions about the OWL migration plan. So I reached out to the chair of the committee and asked what I can provide you guys. So the link in there, and if you have any questions, there's a Brightspace help that you can ask. What I do know, a lot of the feedback was collected last year. It's being implemented this year. So there isn't really a lot of ways to that we can kind of contribute to this transition. But if there is anything, please feel free to reach out. I'm collaborating with Brescia on an academic social at the end of the month, working with Dr. Opioloyo, who's the AVP EDI. They're working on an EDI strategic plan. I'm going to share this with council tonight, but he will be here with Leslie Oliver February 28th to do a presentation on their strategic plan. They haven't had a chance to talk to students, so I thought this was the best way to kind of let them know who the students are and kind of engage in this process. And then this week I have a working group meeting on academic policy. We're just touching on academic considerations and grading policy. And then I've started my transition doc. And then for upcoming, we have a March mental health initiative and of course, Women in Apps. That's all. Any questions?
Hi, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me. I'm a little bit sick, which is why I have a mask on, but trying not to get you all sick. So busy month in the EA portfolio. I'm just going to start off with, which I'm sure probably most of you know already, CASA referendum failed. Very unfortunate, not the result that we wanted. So for those of you who had seen the specific results, we had a 45% in favor, 55% opposed on this to cast the ballot, and 11% of all voters on the ballot did not abstained. So of the 90% who voted, it was 45-55. So we want to understand why it failed, just because that'll inform our steps going forward. So if you could, I would love for you all to talk to your constituents, talk to your friends, We want to understand, is it cost and affordability, lack of understanding of what CASA does, not seeing the value in advocacy or advocacy at the federal level, something else entirely. We want to know what this is because this will help inform our next steps for federal advocacy going forward. I'll also add that I'm working with advocacy staff right now to determine our next steps. Our observership doesn't expire until March 2025. So running that referendum earlier than required is purposeful to give us time to figure out options in case it did fail. So right now that's what we're working on, of trying to figure out what some of the options going forward would be in order to pass those options off to my successor and give them a couple paths forward that might help them figure out what that looks like. In exciting news, we had a federal win. So the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation, or CMHC, it made available a funding pocket of low-cost financing to build student housing. It was existing financing that they made available to universities, colleges, and external organizations. It's about $40 billion in funding, which is super exciting, which means that universities and colleges will be able to access that money to build on and off-campus housing. And this is a recommendation that we lobbied the Minister of Housing and Infrastructure and Communities on in September when he came to visit. And so this will also hopefully mean that we will have more housing in London designed for students. So that's really exciting. It's always exciting when we are able to actually get a win on federal things because a lot of the time they take a long time to do. So it's exciting to see something that we worked on this year be put forward. For the multi-year budget, I gave remarks to the budget PPM on the 29th on some of the recommendations that we discussed last meeting. So on the LTC, road safety, and municipal compliance. Good news, proactive municipal compliance is included in the mayor's budget. Bad news, there are currently $0 allocated to growth hours for the LTC in the mayor's budget, and some more money allocated in the base budget. Which means that there would be no specific increases in service, so increasing frequency on lines that are often full for the next 4 years. So that is obviously really concerning. So the USC put out a statement about this in response to it, talking about our concern and disappointment about this. And we've also been working with our city councilors to kind of figure out what kind of some of our options might be. We also collected feedback on students' experiences with LTC to highlight the service gap. So when I sent the survey results to city councilors, we had about 800 responses to the survey and 22 testimonials in 2 days. So obviously there is a big student desire to see change with the LTC. I will say that the survey results were not overwhelmingly positive. So most people, I think most of you would know, LTC is not necessarily servicing students' needs adequately at the moment. And so the motion from Councillor Farah from Ward 13, he put forward a motion to try and increase some of the base budget, not to the full amount that LTC was asking for, but for a lower amount. It failed, but it was close. It was 7-8, so a pretty close vote. And so we're trying to figure out what next steps look like in terms of being able to continue to advocate to City Council and find other ways to make sure that LTC is getting the funding they need in order to give students the service that they deserve. Some elements of road safety are being included bit by bit, but LTC is our primary focus right now because it is the biggest ask and also the one that has the most momentum behind it and was most likely to be successful. Another thing is a possible federal election. So those of you who follow politics, I'm sure you're probably not surprised that the federal election is probably coming within the next year or so. So I'm currently working with Elections Canada to try and determine possible locations for a polling location on campus, which is super exciting. And it's one of the things I wanted to do coming into this role of making sure we had balloting accessible on campus. Sunday, and I also attended the State of the City on January 25th. So it was myself, my AVP, our COO, Jeff Armour, and our Senior Manager of Advocacy and Government Services, obviously Melissa. So we were able to meet with different local stakeholders. It's a huge event. It's one of the biggest State of the Cities in the country. Some key announcement that came up in terms of State of the City is that the city is working to transition office buildings downtown to housing, which hopefully is going to put some of those steps towards the housing crisis. And also with changing parking requirements for housing in order to make it so that there's not as many parking spots required to allow for denser housing. I also met with Minister Dunlop alongside Sunday as well. So we discussed sector sustainability and the international student cap as some of the discussions. It was great to have a conversation with her, and she's a Western alumna, so she was really happy to be back. Ongoing, so we have our USA membership review. So the EA Standing Committee formed a subcommittee to help to support the drafting of the report, allow for those work with counselors on this, and make sure we have student perspectives on USA and their work. And I'll be bringing forward a work plan to the next subcommittee meeting.
Some of the areas of focus will include a SWOT analysis, inputs and outputs, and an overall alignment with values and mission. There'll be other things within that too, but some of the broader strokes. For municipal budget, continuing advocacy, speaking to relevant stakeholders to support ask for some form of funding for transit. Something is better than nothing, so we're trying to make sure that we get something within the budget as well. For the Blue Ribbon panel, so we're continuing to keep an eye on announcements coming out of that. At the moment, a tuition increase for next year for domestic students is not going to happen. The Minister of Finance, after I drafted my report, came out and said that they will not be looking for a lifting of the tuition freeze for next year for students, which is good, of course, for students. We don't want to have an increase in tuition. And then also is rumors of financial support for institutions, do something like a bailout model, which in which case Western would most likely not get as much funding as possibly other institutions would. So we're still don't have a lot of details on that, but this is what is a possible thing that might be coming out. And we'll be looking for a more official response to the Blue Ribbon panel by the end of February, as discussed by the minister in her response to the international student housing cap. Also continuing to work on policy papers for the USC and for USA, all those fun things, lots of writing. Some upcoming things, we have the General Assembly from March 7th to 10th. So I'm getting my delegates already, doing the training, doing feedback review, all those types of things. We have Women in House next week. And I do want to take this opportunity to give a huge thank you to my team. They have been a huge support in planning this whole event. I am not a planner, as they will all tell you, so they've been all very, very helpful. So I want to make sure I gave them a really public acknowledgement here because I could not have done it without them. Okay, let's give them a round of applause. And other things coming up, we have our federal and provincial budgets most likely coming out in March. So keeping an eye on that. Hopefully we're going to see some investments in student issues, like lots of different things, probably hopefully housing, as well as ratification of the municipal budget. There's another public participation meeting, March 27th. So March 27th, February 27th, which will be hopefully another chance to try and put student voices within the budget and highlight any concerns that we continue to have as the budget process continues. And the budget will be ratified on March 5th. Additionally, I will be out in Edmonton for CASA AGM for March 20th to 23rd. So I will once again be missing a council meeting, which is very EA classic. And I'm also looking forward to transition. So starting to look at what that's going to look like with my successor, and very exciting. But yeah.
Should we still be like encouraging people to fill out the LTC surveys?
Yeah, so that data is still helpful. We presented it with a specific motion, but so like that was just an example of like what we presented for counselors when they were having the initial discussion. But I'm hoping to use that data going forward as well as budget process continues. So more data is always good, and also regardless, this is an ongoing problem. So having that data is always super helpful.
Perfect. Thank you.
I was just wondering if the referendum not passing had some sort of impact or effect on the USC's relationship with CASA.
Yeah, so in terms of right now, the CASA is aware of the fact that the referendum didn't pass. They were watching it pretty closely. They were watching the live stream, so they all are aware of that it didn't pass. I'm going to be meeting with their home office staff pretty soon. So we're trying to find a time to kind of figure out what next steps look like going forward. In terms of relationship with membership, it hasn't necessarily impacted our relationship. It's more just figuring out what next steps are going forward. Even if we were to not join CASA, which I do continue to hope that we will find a way to join CASA. I don't think this is something where we'll have any kind of bad blood. It's just a matter of fit, a matter of what students want. So I'm not concerned about our relationship with CASA going forward.
Thank you. Just a quick question, because I'm a bit unfamiliar with municipal politics. You said 4 years until the next budget review. Is there any way is that dead set, or does that change annually, or can you modify it in any way?
Great question. So, sorry, the City of London operates on a multi-year budget. So they align it with their strat plan. Strat plan is drafted in the first year of the council's term, and then they draft the budget to go alongside that. Legally, they have to do an annual adjustments as to to make sure that it is just complying with municipal with provincial law, because the provincial government sets the requirements of what municipalities have to do. But generally, those will be very, very small things. They will not be large investments. So, because right now what they're trying to do is they're trying to lay out the property tax rate for the next 4 years. And if they don't want to change that super significantly, usually the types of things that will get put into the budget in adjustment years is things like changing the frequency of snow removal or adding more street lights, which are things that are still important, but are not those large investments like what LTC is looking for or like what other boards and commissions are looking for. So it's not completely out of the question that there could be something for LTC going forward, but it would probably be very, very small. And especially with the current city council's outlook on the LTC, from what I've seen, I would say that that would be pretty unlikely, considering that they're already not super friendly of doing this in this year.
Awesome. Thank you. Can I have a quick follow-up? Just some of my friends are very mad about this, so I'm just asking, did they give you a rationale to why they don't want to increase the LTC budget? Because clearly there's a need.
Yes. So there's kind of a few different things. Part of it, and one of the big overarching issues within the municipal budget this year is that it is looking at a very significant property tax hike. So London as a city has generally had pretty low property taxes. And I'll also add that like large property tax hikes are this is not a London specific issue. If you look at other municipalities, currently London's looking at like an 8.6% increase in taxes. Toronto's looking at a 10.5. A lot of other municipalities are looking at huge property tax increases because of things like, frankly, just the cost of goods and inflation going up. And also that a lot of cities have chronically not invested in different services. And now there's a lot of infrastructure issues that are coming home to roost. London is no exception here, LTC being one of the examples of receiving very, very low municipal funding. Part of it is because they are receiving some base budget increases, but that doesn't go towards things like increasing frequency or increasing lines. It's just kind of increasing spending for existing infrastructure. So that's kind of rationale they've given. And then also with that significant increase that they're already getting to the base budget, members of council have been kind of discussing of, well, they've increased fares recently, and if that's not getting us more service, then like they've kind of had conversations about whether LTC needs better management or all these things, which I mean, I'm not going to take a stance on, but like that is something that's kind of been their rationale, and that's what they've been saying on committee deliberations. And they also have been kind of talking about how there has been kind of talk about students, and they have been kind of saying of, well, if students want better transit, then they should be willing to pay for it, which obviously we disagree with, that students are underpaying, which I do believe that we are paying our fair share. So that is kind of the several different things. It's usually pretty long conversations, but those are kind of like the main themes within that.
Thank you.
Back to the CASA referendum results. In terms of like a way forward, do we see any future relationship with UCrew, or is this something that's still undergoing?
Yeah, so with that relationship with UCrew, I would say that we're still kind of looking at what that looks like. I would say that I think that UCrew is kind of in an interesting spot right now where there are quite a few other UCrew members who are observers at CASA or who are looking at CASA observership, or there's kind of a little bit of an impasse of what that will look like. So we're kind of trying to figure out as an organization, as a group of these 6-7 schools, what that will look like going forward. So it's kind of a little bit unclear, but I also do want to make sure that I'm providing my successor with all the options. So I'm going to try and make sure that they have the full context and all those things.
Okay. So just to clarify, like it would still be very beneficial for us to look at something outside of UCrew going forward, because it's okay.
Yes, I would say like currently currently UCrew, we aren't paying any fees towards it, which I mean is kind of one of the benefits at the moment. But I think over the next couple of years, from the conversations I've had with membership, they are looking towards asking for a fee or asking for some kind of financial contributions from members, which is just necessary. Like you can't run an organization representing 240,000 students without any kind of part-time staff support or full-time staff support. That's what makes organizations like USA or CASA successful. I mean, you saw with the conversations that were happening today with USA, that a lot of the work that it gets done there is done by full-time staff. And a lot of time members or the members of the board of directors, just frankly, like there's so many other competing priorities. That's part of the benefit of outsourcing. So, and also just going forward, I do continue to believe that CASA is the best option. It's just figuring out, okay, what does that look like going forward? And also at the end of the day, I think it just boils down to understanding why the referendum failed. And understanding what students are trying to tell us with that. So again, like anything that you're able to, any kind of conversations you're able to have around the referendum, I'd really appreciate if you're able to kind of translate some of that to me, of give me some of that context, just so we can figure out what our next steps can look like.
So with regards to the CASA referendum, I know many people think the results to be sort of a reflection of cynicism towards the USC. But my question for you is just what is your main your key takeaways? I know you're asking us to sort of go to our constituents and find out, but I just wondered like what are your personal thoughts on what affected the outcome?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of things. I think that there is obviously the consideration of, students are not in a good financial situation right now. And so I think that for some students it is a concern of, that $2.44, while I do believe that it is worth it, and while that is something that I continue to think benefits students in the long run and does give them savings, for students who are already struggling, that might be a really tough pill to swallow. I also think that looking at how we can more effectively translate how advocacy happens, I think part of the issue is also that students don't always understand kind of what we're talking about when we talk about these coalitions. And I think that going forward, I think we just need to figure out a better way of translating what that looks like and how that affects students' everyday lives, because I think it can kind of be a little bit abstract for students. And I think that like at the end of the day, like we should be doing a better job of making sure students understand what we're doing on their behalf.
I'm just curious, like, if the CASA referendum failed, I think that's the students trying to send us a message. So, like, why are we trying again? I'm not quite understanding why. I think like you ran a yes campaign, so it wasn't a null campaign. So students got all the pros of CASA and none of the cons, which is like a good, I guess. And it still failed. So why are we trying again? Like, why are we trying to push something on the students that they clearly told us they don't want and they don't care about it?
Yeah, so I think that that's something is, again, I think we want to understand why it failed, because I think there's a lot of different reasons that students would want to vote yeah, or want to vote no. And I think that going forward, we want to make sure we have that information of, okay, well, what does this look like? Especially because I did hear from students that there are students who voted who did not know what the referendum was. And so I think that that's a huge part of it, is if students don't know what they're voting for, then like if I was a student and I didn't know what a fee was, then I probably would also not be as inclined to vote yes. So I think it's also making sure that we're getting outside of the group of students who usually tend to vote or who kind of have that understanding of advocacy. And I think that at the end of the day, going forward, I don't think we can really figure out real steps until we figure out why the referendum failed and like kind of get a better sense of what students are actually asking of us. Because as I said, there's a lot of reasons the referendum could have failed, whether it's because they have an issue with CASA itself, whether because they didn't understand it, whether because for all these other reasons. And I don't think that it is in students' best interest for us to just proceed without kind of reflecting on that and how we can improve the USC's advocacy as a result of that. Any other questions? Cool.
Hi guys, happy Valentine's Day. Okay, so for my completed, we completed our craft night events. So we had a series of 4 craft nights that we just finished. I attended a couple and the vibes were really, really good. My coordinators have been running a bunch of programming, so I've been helping to support with that. My coordinators have been working really hard. So my ethno coordinator, Light, had a really great Black History Month event in the atrium. My programs coordinator, Santi, organized Culture Shock, a really cool event celebrating like a bunch of cultures on campus last week. And then today, if you were in the atrium, you may have seen the annual Get Tested event, which my health promo coordinator ran, and it was really, really good and had really high engagement. So that was really exciting. And then, of course, we had Purple Boots last weekend, which was really fun. We had Tim Hicks, and he was like super nice and a really great performer, and we were really happy with that. Had a really good turnout, and it was really fun. And then it's not on here, but I did VP 101 and State of the USC as well, which most of you were at. And then ongoing, we have orientation planning and support. So the faculty LSTs are currently in the process of hiring their teams right now. So by February 26th, they will have their shortlist sent to us. And then offers won't go out for a little bit, but yeah, that's in the process. We're just supporting them, making sure everything goes well on the back end. We have another LST training after reading week, just talking about the importance of like team building and all that kind of stuff. And then we're continuing to plan the week and make sure the programming reflects the feedback we got from softs and first years this year. So we meet with our working group monthly currently, and then we have a bunch of other meetings to plan that kind of stuff. And then upcoming for our event schedule, very exciting. We have puppy yoga coming up at the beginning of March. I also added a day because it always fills up in minutes, I've heard. So we'll have 3 days, which is very exciting. We are also running a second vintage on campus at the end of March. And then very exciting softs. We will be having another soft pub. So the invite will be going out soon for all of you. And then we're also running a second battle of the bands, which is really exciting. So if you know anybody in a band, let me know. Yeah, and that's my update. My wins are we have a female president, which is so exciting to me. Yay, congrats, Emily. Also, sunshine. I was lacking when I wrote this, but we've seen the sun a lot lately. And Women in Health is next week, which I'm really excited about. Any questions? Sick. Okay, bye.
All right, hi everybody. So for what I've completed since our last time that we met, we had State of the USC, which was a lot of fun, as well as VP 101, where I got to kind of teach people more about the role, show them the spaces that I oversee, and kind of break down what it's like to be a VP day to day. We've officially reopened walk-ins for food support services, which is very exciting. So we're keeping an eye on that, seeing how much quicker we have food moving out of the center, making sure that my volunteers are able to handle this new capacity. But so far it's been going well. So really excited to see how this continues to grow after reading week. We've also completed our budgets, which I know Sunday is going to speak to later today, as well as the club's president appreciation event. Everyone who came was super appreciative and everyone seemed to have a really good time. This is definitely an event that I can see becoming a keystone event year to year if there's still interest in it with next year's executive team. And it was really nice to get to kind of talk a bit more one-on-one with club presidents, hear how their years are going, also hear how I can do better when overseeing the club system, if there's any recommendations that I can make to the future VPSS to make sure that's working even better for them. Ongoing, continuing to work on my final report. I've also given each of my coordinators a final report worksheet to make sure that all the most essential knowledge is shared with the new coordinators. Something that I really want to focus on with the creation of this role is keeping really good institutional knowledge. So making sure that what coordinators are learning, what I'm learning from year to year is being passed on. So that way the new coordinators and new leaders in my role have a really great foundation to start off on. So I'm really glad to see that they've already started working on that. I've also been helping coordinators with their keystone events. So I know I mentioned this last time. This includes things like helping with venues and spaces, securing talent and programming for the events, and helping to manage their budgets with them. There are several Pride events coming up, so definitely keep an eye out on the Pride Instagram, as well as Peer Support's Keystone event, which is the Prosper Conference. USC awards applications are opening. We also have the income tax clinic starting in March. So lots of events happening. So a lot of my time has just been helping each of my coordinators make sure that these events can be as successful as possible. We also have an improved delivery method for food support. So we're working with a company to help deliver food. This is also just, again, to keep on trying to improve food support logistics as much as we can. I really want there to be space for food support to grow next year and start to provide possibly fresh produce and other things like that. But we can't do that until there's a strong system in place. So making sure that that's there. And then again, continuing with the menstrual equity hamper program. Upcoming, we have CGB hiring and then starting to plan the transition with the new club's governance board, as well as the installation of soap stand, which again was something that we're able to do as a result of grant funding that I received. So very excited to do that. And the 3 wins were Brescia Ball because it was so much fun, as well as the Tim Hicks concert. I'm not really a country music person, but it was a lot of fun. Also excited to announce that we'll be having Pride Ball at The Well, which is a new not queer ball bar in London, which is really exciting to be able to kind of coordinate with the community and showcase some other safe spaces for queer students across campus. And yeah, any questions?
Okay, I'm gonna keep this really short and sweet because I know that everyone has had a really long day. Completed State of the USC went very smoothly. We estimated that around 500 people showed up, which is super exciting. And we now have a new cohort of student leaders and a new USC president, which is always so exciting. USC in the Wild was completed as well. It was led by my community engagement coordinator. It was hugely successful. We gave away over $2,000 worth of free bagels, which is always great, especially during midterm season. And we also passively collected student input, asking students how do they know us. And then also I organized VP 101, also hugely successful. We saw the most people sign up for it ever. We had over 25 people sign up. And this might seem kind of small, but events like these are incredibly important because we wouldn't be anywhere if we didn't have student leaders to take up these roles. So it's always very exciting. Ongoing, as always, supporting each exec on the media requests. We have the Sunday series as well. Council recap videos. There'll be a new one coming out next week. We're also collabing with Western Sustainability to raise awareness on the Green Bin program and waste management on and off campus. So we're going to be launching a video as well as a game in the USC Now app where you can win some really cool prizes. Upcoming Radio Western at the Spoke Exec Edition, February 27th. So if you want to come listen to us and our awful taste in music, I highly recommend. It's going to be a good time. Women in House is next week. I love this program to bits. It's the reason I got involved with the USC. I was lucky enough to go 3 times in my undergrad, including in 2020, 2 days before the world shut down for the pandemic. So I am beyond excited to go next week. And transition, working really hard to make sure that there's a strong foundation for the incoming vice president's student engagement, and make sure that they feel supported throughout the transition. 3 exec wins. I have successfully learned how to drive manual. I am so excited. Thank you. Thank you. So I don't stall my car as much. Her name's Fiona Apple. She's really pretty. Also, having a new USC president to be elected, it doesn't get less exciting. This is my 6th time I've seen a USC president get elected, and every single time it is so exciting. So welcome, Emily. And then also super exciting, I had the most people shadow me doing VP 101, which is crazy because one of the reasons we changed the name was because it always had the least amount of applications. So this is showing that students are actually viewing the vice president's student engagement as a role that they can, be, which is so thrilling. So yeah, thanks guys. Any questions? Questions, going once, going twice?
Can you tell council what happened to your car?
No. It broke down on the way to a concert last week on Tuesday, but she's fixed now. She needs some TLC, 10 to 11 care.
Okay, that is our executive reports. If there are no further questions, we'll move on to our next motion. This is the motion regarding the council approval of the USC budget. President Ajak is the mover. Is there a seconder? Counselor Haug. President Ajak, you have the floor.
Thank you. We're very, I love the energy from social side. It's definitely the roses. Okay, so I know we stand up and promise that we're gonna be short, but I'm not gonna promise you that because I would be lying to you guys. This might take a while, but before I begin, show of hands, who looked at the budget? I love it. Great. You guys are doing your due diligence. Got the presentation up there. Oh, go back. So I wanted to shed light on this. So this was actually done by a graphic design intern. I put it in the Slack. I don't know if you guys saw it. His name is Arsalan. He does really good work. And I think Emily, you should do this next year. So. Oh, I love it. Okay. I love to see it. Okay, let's just do actual work here, guys. So what is arguably the most stressful and exciting time of the year? It's time we discuss the USC F25 USC budget. So go to slide 2, Bella. Thank you. So each year, the president, in collaboration with the vice presidents and full-time staff of the organization, we work together to produce the annual budget that will be presented to council, which is happening here today. Now, for those of you who were counselors last year, you would recognize this as a fairly routine process. But for those of you guys who are serving their first terms on council, let me tell you a little bit about how the budget works. So while council considers the budget in February, the process, like I mentioned before, actually begins in early November. Can you go to the next slide, Bella? So staff and executives are asked to plan their budgets for the following year and submit their proposals by mid-December. The budget team, myself included, then considers all the proposals changes from one year to another and puts together a final version that is then used as a starting point to build the fee bill. So next slide. Thanks, Bella. The budgets then go to board and council for each body to review the section under the jurisdiction. And once everything is approved, the budget is then presented to a committee of the Board of Governors and then sent for their approval as well. We can't collect fees without this approval. This usually takes place in mid-March to early November, so I will be giving this presentation for the next 2 months. Next slide, Bella. Thank you. But before we begin, I just want to draw to council's attention a few things that you want to keep in mind as we discuss the budget. Council's primary focus is on the executive budget and the fee bill. Not so much the corporate budget, because again, that belongs to the jurisdiction of the board of directors. The budget, like every year, is simply a forecast. It's something that details how we plan to use student money responsibly, but based on a best guess at revenue and expenditures on a given period of time in case the year upcoming. Council's secondary focus is to look at trends, identify priorities, and make sure the spending is aligned with the strategic plan. Now, luckily for you, we have 50 plus full-time staff and 6 executives who spend every single day since November working on this budget. So I think it's safe to say that try not to get too stuck in the weeds here, because the more you focus on the individual numbers, the less you're more concerned with the patterns and trends. So holistically, we use these budgets to set the overall student fees rather than setting the fees and trying to reverse engineer the budget. The reason I say don't stick too much in the weeds is because, as per bylaw 1, the incoming council and executive have the ability to reallocate spending within their portfolios should they see fit. You saw an example of this when Bianca moved $9,000 into her food support in another area of her portfolio that wasn't being spent on. You guys do remember that, right? It's a couple months ago. So long as the bottom line doesn't change, and I literally mean the bottom line, if you guys have the budgets up on your screens, and the changes are presented to council for approval, it can be done. So some questions you should be asking: does the budget align with our mission, vision, and values? Who benefits from this budget? Who doesn't? What is the process for arriving at these numbers? Are increases, if any, reasonable in the line of inflation, cost of goods, services, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, with all that being said, next question. Let's begin. On behalf of the USC, I am proud to present the 2024-2025 USC Operating and Capital Budget, Unlocking Our Potential. So this document represents a commitment to the student body to make sure our mission, vision, it's okay, Bella. So this document represents our commitment to the student body to make sure our mission, vision, and values are more than just words. They are real. Students can see them in action and feel the impact the USC has on our campus. Next slide. This year, we had three main goals in mind: student engagement, the cost of living, and flexibility, all of which tie directly back into trends that we've seen this year. Students are always looking for new ways to engage with the USC. We saw record-setting voter turnout in 2023, and it's been a continuing effort to keep that momentum going with efforts like Tamsin just mentioned in her executive report. This year, we sold out concerts, programs, and had consistent traffic in the Spoke in the Wave. However, at the same time, the cost of living continues to put pressure on students' budgets. Next slide. So keeping these both in mind, our approach to this year's budget was to maximize efficiency without increasing the cost to students' wallets. And I'm proud to say that there will be a 0% increase in executive budgets this year and a 1% increase in most of our fees. I say most because some fees are bound by contract that have to increase by a certain number given in that contract. We are very intentional about allocating the right amount of funds for programming, services, and job opportunities. The new vice president position that we voted on has untapped potential to truly bring the USC to all students. Now, for all of those who I spoke about earlier, who may be in Ivy or in BMOS and are probably wondering how is this even possible? Next slide. Two things to remember. We are being efficient and realistic. Not to say that we haven't been in the past, but we have taken added measures to increase efficiency and to target the real life that students are currently living. A big change to the budget last year was making AVPs full-time in the summer and paying coordinators hourly. After reviewing a lot of data over the past year, we've decided to change AVPs back to part-time over the summer, and this has resulted in a lot of savings that we are now able to push into programming. These roles need to be more accessible to students, as 3 months in full-time in the summer meant a lot of students couldn't afford to apply in the position and not being able to work throughout the month of May. Now, the funds for this initiative were reallocated within the executive budgets to support other services and programming. Next slide, Bella. So with that being said, I want to bring your attention back to our three main goals, starting with one. We have student engagement. With council's approval to refocus Vice President Communications and Public Affairs to student engagement, we're making sure that all of our strategic pillars are represented in the executive position. To support this new position, we're reallocating existing staff resources to make sure that the incoming executive has the human resources that they need to execute that vision. Second, we have affordability. The USC recognizes that the cost of living is rising at an exponential rate for everyone. Students are particularly impacted by costs that are beyond their control. This year, rather than making new investments in a number of our lines, we've reallocated existing funds so we can keep our fees low. Our executives have committed to a 0% increase on our bottom lines, while our corporate budgets see a 1% increase, unless we are contractually obligated to increase by a larger percentage. So in a world where rent, food, and services are often increasing by double-digit percentages, we're doing our best not to add to that pile. Lastly, we have flexibility. If you read our budget in the past, you might notice that things look a little different this year. In past years, the outgoing executive team, with council's approval, has set the budget for the incoming team. This year, we're trying to create a little bit more flexibility. We have to set a budget to assure students that we are going to be responsible stewards of their fees. However, we're going to leave the individual program lines to the incoming executive and council to approve. They won't be able to change the bottom line, so that will stay the same. So your fees won't change. Instead, they'll be able to use what they heard in their elections, in their campaigns. They'll be able to use that and advocate towards that within the budget. Now, and they'll be able to respond to the student community and political landscape between their elections and between their election and the summer meeting of council. So to make sure that we're truly spending our money where we need it. Now imagine the power of the advocacy. if the incoming council and the executive team have the power to allocate, say, $9,000 into the food support budget right off the bat, instead of having to, like Bianca, having to worry about that funding partway through their term and then coming to council halfway through the term. And so you might be asking, how much more money are we talking here for each executive portfolio? Let me show you. Slide number 1. Vice President University Affairs will be receiving $23,642.58. Slide number 2. External Affairs will be receiving $11,642.58. Next slide. Meredith gets the biggest, $47,642.58. Ironically, Bianca also gets the biggest. Student Services will also be receiving $47,642.58. Lastly, we have Student Engagement that's going to be receiving in excess of $17,642.58. Next slide, Bella. So with all that being said, if you take a look at the bottom line for this year's executive budget, it has not changed from last year. Next slide, Bella. Our ancillary fees are increasing by 1%, except the contractual fees like the LTC bus pass and the health and dental plan. And then our last slide, Bella. Our climate requires all of us to take a look at what we're spending. It's time we become more efficient with what we spend instead of asking more from students. Western is increasing their fees by 7%, and the City of London is increasing it by 8.8%. Could you imagine how much more affordable it would be to live if they took a page out of our example and did their budgets similar to how we're doing our budgets? So that concludes my presentation. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
This is the main question period for this motion, by the way. Councilor Isis, go ahead.
Never tell who you're looking at. My one question, and I can't tell if this is working, is when you showed those numbers, the 47,000, 47,000, 17,000. So is that the money? Is that all is that all the money that's coming from the AVP and coordinator roles?
Yeah.
I just didn't understand that. Okay.
Yeah, so it's let me try to use this metaphor to help people understand and wrap their minds around this. So you can imagine, I tried this with my governance and finance council, so you can tell me if it works. You can imagine we have a bunch of different buckets that are not like water buckets, like actual buckets, that represent the VP's budget lines. So we have university affairs, external affairs, student services, and so on and so forth. They each have a certain amount of money that goes in it, but it's not always used to its fullest extent every single year. What we've done is we've done a lot of research into the data. What have we pulled out of it? What is not being used? What has not been used in the past? We're taking that, skimming a little water off the top, pulling it into a completely separate bucket that's labeled university affairs, student services, so on and so forth, for the next incoming council and executive to pull from and slot in should they see. Say, for example, we look at the line that Bianca has with food support, and they may say, oh, 9,000 was a little too high, a little too low. Maybe it should change. Maybe it can go here, go there. But that's essentially what we're doing with that. So the water that we skinned off the top is what you're seeing on the slides. Does that make sense? Yeah. Can I pass to Bianca? Yeah.
Hi, sorry. I also just wanted to emphasize that the funding that we're able to find in each portfolio that we're able to put back into other services or back into other areas, this has been done so with like a lot of access that we find, because when last year's executive team decided to make different decisions with how we paid our coordinators and how we paid our AVPs, they made sure to put a lot of cushion in that budget. So that way we could ensure that we were able to pay our coordinators and our AVPs throughout the year. And what we've realized is that we just didn't need quite as much. So just to kind of emphasize that, because I know that there might be concern over making sure we're still budgeting enough for coordinators and AVPs. And there's just a lot of cushion that was put in the year before us. So now that we know exactly how much we're going to need from year to year, we're able to take some of that cushion out to make sure that we're spending it on the services and on the programming that students are able to benefit from. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure that was really clear.
Oh, I could take the questions. Yes.
Thank you for the presentation. Just really quickly, you said the new exec team can allocate the budget themselves as long as the bottom line doesn't change.
That's correct.
Is there a certain deadline by what time they have to publicly say this is the allocations we've decided on? Or can they,
Yeah, summer council.
summer council?
Yes.
And then later on, if they want to change that, can they change that by themselves, or does that again require council approval?
Council approval.
Cool, thank you.
I don't know if this was done in this budget, which is I'm gonna ask first, the decision to add more money into the elections and like the campaigning process. Cause I know like it went from $100 for like counselors to 400. Was that like decided last year? If anyone knows that.
Sorry, the question is
So like
a
my
specific line?
No, but I guess I'm just asking if more money is being moved into like elections, because I know that the budgets for running as a faculty president and
Oh, I
as
see what you're asking.
yeah, like as a faculty counselor went up this year. So I guess I'm just wondering if there's any change with that or like the reason behind that, if you know.
So that was actually done in bylaw 2. Yeah, please.
So that's one of my budgets, so I'll answer that one. So the CRO and DRO make that call as to kind of what those are, the campaign spending limits are. So my job is to just make sure I've got enough so that, let's say, you know, we had, I forget what number exactly I use. I think I use 65 candidates. I make sure that I have enough that if every single one of them applied for reimbursement at the maximum amount, we have that covered. So the short answer to your question is yes, we've increased that a little bit. The longer answer is that we don't often have that many people put in for reimbursement. So there's always a little bit of cushion there.
So it depends on how many people are running each year. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, I had a quick question in terms, just out of curiosity, under corporate administration for student leadership, where are those funds allocated to specifically?
So that's one of the corporate budgets. So that's board of directors jurisdiction.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Just to confirm, any of the sections that are more than 1%, that is contractual, specifically the healthcare one, that's all contractual.
Yes.
Awesome, thank you.
Wow. Okay. Well, thanks, council.
Again, we'll be voting on this next week, as well as having the debate period. We'll now move on to our next motion, which is for the USC to request financial standing review and presentations from the Western Gazette, Marching Band, and Radio Western. Councillor Crow is the mover. Is there a seconder? Councillor Wasty. Councillor Crow, you have the floor.
Okay, I'll try to make this brief. But basically, the Governance and Finance Committee sat down to review the budget that Sunday just presented, but we also looked at the ancillary fees for the next year. And there were 3 lines that sort of paused for reflection for myself and a few other counselors in that committee. So the Western Gazette, I'm just going to say the numbers in case no one has looked at them. So Western Gazette, $18.69 per student, Radio Western, $11.25, Marching Band, $2.13. And that is the same for affiliates because some of the lines are decreased. So sort of like why this motion's coming forward is I believe that is our duty as USC to just ensure that students funding is going wow, I can't talk, is being used appropriately. So I just think it's sort of our mandate as a committee, but also as council here today to just ensure that it's being spent properly. in terms of like aligning it with our mission, again, we represent so many different constituencies. So I just think it's important and in a way of fiduciary responsibility. In terms of consultations, when we discussed this in the committee, we had chatted with Sunday about this and how to proceed, and he gave us direction of what to do. I went back to my constituency, King's University College, and many students expressed concern just around the high number for each. And I know $2.13 probably doesn't seem like a lot, but given that so many students right now are experiencing a lot of financial hardships, it does add up. So the proposal is really just to get these 3 external groups to come into council and to give us a presentation on their spending. And I actually would like to amend the motion. Melissa pointed out something which I'm grateful for, because I used the word audit, and that can mean many different things. So the languaging that these external groups use is budget narrative. So I don't know, I did send Melissa the amendment.
We'll take the amendment. Oh, actually, we're voting on this today. So after the question period, we'll take that amendment.
Okay.
So, yeah. So keep going if you have more to say. Or
I think that's about it.
okay. Are there questions? Okay. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think your mic's working, but I think I heard. So the Melissa's going to reach out, and the idea is they would be presenting at our next USC meeting. And then from those findings, then we will kind of deliberate and discuss. And correct me if I'm wrong, Sunday, but we can't change the actual dollar amount without a referendum.
No, I think you had asked if you as King's constituency wanted to pull out of it. That has to be done by referendum. Oh, is that what? Yeah. Oh, then yes, if that's what she's asking. Sorry, I totally misunderstood that.
Yes, go ahead.
Really quickly, you said that you had questions and concerns, and you specifically stated these 3 parts. Can you say what were the questions and concerns about these specific 3 sections and not for, say, the other 17?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when you look at the ancillary fee schedule, a lot of this is stuff that we can't change. Especially, I think you had asked earlier, the increase in the transit and the health and wellness. So those are getting a significant increase, 7%, 5%. Those are things we can't change. But these are 3 lines that I think we can have conversations around, either decreasing or just ensuring that the funds that are being used are used appropriately, and we have an explanation of what they're being used. If you look at the budget policy, there's sort of like 1 paragraph of where the money goes, and that doesn't tell you much. So, yeah, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilor Goddess.
I have a question, and then Councilor and it's on Zoom. Is he allowed to ask the question?
Yes.
Okay, I'll start with my question.
Just the folks on the recording.
No, it's okay. Oh, Alex, if you can hear me, do you want to go first? I forgot my question.
Yeah, I'm happy to go first.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I just had a question about the presentation itself. What level of presentation are we asking of the Gazette, Radio Western, and Marching Band? And what are we trying to, like, what is your goal of having that presentation? Is it to like see if there's, too much fat in their budget that maybe we can reduce those fees to help students out, or like what level of presentation? Because it also is a burden on them, and I want to be conscious of that.
Yeah, I think it's also though a burden on our students if you look at it in that way. If there's money that they're having to spend and it's not being allocated properly, I think that's sort of our mandate as council to ensure that students' money is going into the right avenues. But to answer your question, so the after chatting with Melissa, the budget narrative is the languaging that each of these groups use. So it is a kind of high-level overview of their budget and what budget items are going to be covered by USC or the student body. I'm blanking on what your question was. Sorry. So yeah, just like a 15-minute presentation, a high-level overview of where this spending is going. Because when I did ask where these three external groups, where the money is going and how it's being used, no one had an answer. So I just think it's important that we know how this money is being used and what it's being spent on.
Further questions? Counselor Goddess, go ahead.
So just for clarification, this is just for education and not necessarily going to lead to a referendum. We just want more clarity on where this money is going.
No, I mean, I think it could go into referendum. I mean, if we find that like funds aren't being allocated properly, I think that's a discussion that we need to have.
And would that be up to counselor judgment to put that to referendum, or how would we ensure, or how do you think we would ensure that proper consultations are conducted to ensure that this is something worthy of going to referendum and not just personal counselor opinion?
Yeah, I think if we have a presentation that shows that funds aren't being used appropriately, I don't think that will just be my personal opinion. I'm assuming others in this group will comment on that. And again, it's all student money, whether you're at King's, Brescia, Huron, Ivy, Western. We're all representing a constituency, so it's not my personal opinion. The constituency that I represent are having problems with these lines, so I'm just here advocating to ensure that it's being used appropriately.
Thank you.
Counselor Uslis?
My question is most like to everyone, but also to yourself. Are you aware that last year the prior council got a presentation from the Gazette and Radio Western? So we had the same questions. We felt the same way. And I don't know if this presentation could be given again, but they gave that report and then it was passed by all constituencies unanimously. Are you aware of that? / is everyone aware of that? Like, you don't need to answer the question. It's just, I guess it's kind of an educational piece, but my question is, are you aware that that's been brought up before?
Yeah, I found that out like 40 minutes ago.
Oh.
Further questions? Okay, if there are none, I will move into the debate period for this particular motion. Are there any points of debate or amendments to be made? You can make your amendment at this time.
Okay, so line 3, so just changing it to, whereas many students are currently facing many financial difficulties, it is imperative that a budget narrative is presented to council to ensure maximum transparency. Was that too fast? Nope. Okay.
Also got it.
And then the other amendment is the last sentence. Be it resolved that the Western Gazette, Marching Band, and Radio Western present a budget narrative and a presentation for the council.
Should we do them separately? Okay. We'll do them separately, but Counselor Crowe will be the mover for both. So starting with the first amendment to be made, and this is on the highlighted, go to the agenda to follow along. It's the best way to do this. The first amendment to be made, Counselor Crowe is mover. Is there a seconder? Counselor Wang, are there any questions on this amendment? Are there any points of debate on this amendment? Okay, if there are none, please raise your placard if you're in favor of this amendment. Lower? Against? And those abstaining? This amendment stands and we'll now be discussing the motion as it has been amended. The second amendment, Counselor Crowe is the mover. Is there a seconder? Counselor Jones? Are there any questions on this amendment? If there are none, are there any points of debate to be made on this particular amendment? Seeing as there are none, please raise your placard if you're in favor. Lower, against, and those abstaining. Okay, this motion or this amendment also passes. And Melissa's updating in the agenda, the updated motion, what we'll be voting on from henceforth. So are there any further points of debate to be made or amendments? Counselor Goddess, go ahead.
Hi, I have a point of debate, and then my partner, Counselor Tan, also has a point of debate on Zoom. So I'm going to speak against this motion, or at least against this motion for now. I think more research needs to be done within each of your respective faculties on the connection that students have to each of these groups. So Western Gazette, Marching Band, and Radio Western. I know from consultations that I've had just from the last governance and finance meeting that Radio Western is really important for faculties like media and students in music. Even just the London community, they're really connected to Radio Western. So before we put these groups on the spot, kind of like, why do you deserve this funding? I think we should just do more research on how our different student groups are very, very connected to these groups. We're all here connected to the Western Gazette. I mean, I'm sure most of us have been featured in it. Marching band is just such an amazing form of school spirit. And we don't want to question their viability for funding until we've really, really done that research on maybe they don't benefit our community as much as we think they do. So I urge you guys to really, really, really do your research before we put these groups on the spot. That's it. And then Counselor Tan, go for it.
Yeah, thank you, Hannah. I also want to speak against the motion. I think to me, it just comes down to timing. Like it takes a time burden to put together a presentation like this. And just historically, based off of what we've given them, how like with consultation with our own constituency, how important these things are. I don't think it's worth both our time and the time of these groups to give us a presentation. Yeah, that's all.
Yes, go ahead. Counselor Yale.
I will be voting in favor because I feel like any group, no matter what, if they're requesting any sort of increase in funding, there should be justifications. And if there's concerns on the council floor, which there are, I think it is a valid question to request that these three groups bring it up. And I get that, yes, there's a time constraint because it is going to be so soon. However, we will be voting so soon as well. And now I think for many of us counselors that also are not on governance and finance, given that there's questions and concerns related to the fee increases for these three groups, I think many of us also want to hear these questions and concerns and the justifications and rationale for these increases. So I think, yeah, I'll be voting in favor for that reason.
Counselor Wang.
Okay, so to my understanding, and I want to be very clear of this, the intent is not to single out any institution of the USC. It is only to ensure that we are doing our jobs as counselor by ensuring that the USC is fiscally responsible. And I also wanted to add, with regards to the motion itself, in terms of and responding to Counselor Tan's point of debate, I wanted to say that we were just talking with Melissa earlier, actually, and they already do have, like, all of these three institutions in particular already have a breakdown of their spending, and so it wouldn't be that much of an extra burden to have them come before council to present. They already have that information. All we want is for them to share it for us And in terms of referendums and that kind of stuff, that's up to you guys. Hear them out, hear them come and speak the Wednesday after reading week, and then go back to your faculties. And then you guys can make the decision if you feel that the spending of these institutions is reasonable or not. The idea here is to only ensure that we as council are doing our job, and is to ensure that, you know, we have all of as many facts as possible on the table before taking the initiative to act on that. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Just really quickly, I will be in favor for this motion, and quick point on the doing our research. I think wouldn't it the best way to do our research be hearing straight from those institutions and hearing from them why do you need that money or how are you using it? So I think as long as this is purely an educational, just to hear how you're using your money, it's the best way to do the research will be to hearing from them. Thank you.
Are there further questions at this, or further points of debate or amendments to be made at this time? Okay. Seeing as there are none, we're going to call to question. Please log back into Turning or Echo 360. It probably kicked everyone out. Session ID Feb 2024. And make sure that what you're voting on is motion 4. Make sure that's what your screen looks like. Yes.
Point of information, the motion 4 still says the use of the word audit.
Yeah, so we can't, or I can't change the Echo 360 like a touch and go. We're voting on how it looks in the agenda. Thank you. Thank you for, I should have mentioned that. Yeah. What you're voting on is how it looks in the agenda, not how it looks in Echo 360. That's a good point of clarification.
Point of personal privilege.
Yeah.
Can you just wait a second? I logged out of my thing, so I need to.
Yeah. Everyone has an opportunity. Okay, I will be closing voting. Yep. It passed, though not unanimously. So we'll be moving on to our next motion, which is approving the policy recommendations for the LGBTQ2S+ students on Western Campus. Counselor Leokakos, yeah. Counselor Leokakos is a mover. Is there a seconder? Counselor Beecroft. Got it. Counselor Leokakos, you have the floor.
I'll let Maria speak more about this.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Hello. So for this motion, I kind of shared earlier in my exec report that 2 years ago, there were kind of like recommendations to have for the sports and rec center. So similarly, me and my student experience coordinator reached out to Pride, Jen, Spectrum to conduct consultations to see what else or what support we can do for the rest of the campus. So with that, 2 recommendations came out, which are in the appendix. So the first one kind of talks about, let me just open it as well. So the first one addresses the lack of community connection on campus. So the support group existed 2 years ago. Once that person left, so did that support group. So it just was never replaced. And then for the second one, the EDID strategic plan, this is just to see what metrics they can put in. So we haven't seen any metrics yet, but there will be a presentation in the upcoming week. But what I'm asking you here is to kind of, we're making sure that there will be metrics implemented. So that's kind of like the USC's job for that recommendation. I'll take any questions.
Are there questions at this time? If there are no questions, we'll move on to our next motion. and be having the debate period and voting on this in the second part of the meeting. This is the motion to improve the USC and HBK relationship. What? Oh, sorry. Is there a mover? Is there a mover? Counselor with Rud Hernantha.
Yep.
A seconder? Counselor Wasti. Does anyone want to speak on this? Yeah, okay.
I won't speak on it for too long because you guys already saw our HBK head softs this year give their presentation. But just to recap, we're just proposing for a more standardized and inclusive approach for planning and running a week that encourage and respects not just HBK soft groups, but all soft groups equitably across campus for concerns regarding safety and inclusion, and to ensure that a week is equitable and welcoming for not just our incoming students, but all our orientation leaders as well, because we have so many different campuses and faculties which are made up of very diverse student bodies. And this way we can ensure that we're providing the resources and support and advocating for students in each of these respective groups and their student leaders in an equal manner. And that is what we're asking for from the USC. If there's any other questions, I can try to answer it, but I think that will wait till next week.
Are there any questions? Councilor Leokakos?
I'd like to hear the perspective from the Vice President Orientation and Programming regarding the communication during the start time with HBK Softs and also their perspective on the motion.
Hey, everyone. So as you guys know, orientation is a bit of a beast. It's very complex. So the stakeholders that we have involved in orientation are Western University, student experience, the affiliate administrators, as well as their student leaders. There are faculties as well as housing. So there are a lot of stakeholders in this, and the USC is only one of the partners in this joint effort. And we would never want anyone to feel excluded, but also it's not entirely in our control, all the decisions within orientation. So ultimately, a lot of the time, it's up to the affiliate administrators how and when to engage their student leaders. We also really want to respect affiliates' autonomy as organizations. And sometimes there are also issues communicating within all of these stakeholders as well. As you can imagine, like it's a really big web. And the direction that Sunday and I received this year was from the orientation working group in Western was that the Western side of things, the university was going to take care of the affiliate relationships as far as the orientation updates went. And in a big event like this, obviously things can get missed and we really apologize for that, but we consistently try to do our best and mitigate anytime anybody feels left out. This year, Western Orientation had a lead in that position who was in charge of liaising with the affiliate administration. And I did sit in on monthly meetings with them and updated on our side, as well as getting their updates to make sure that they were included in planning and advocating. Directed by the orientation lead, our VP Comms also met bi-weekly with affiliate administrators to share any updates, as well as get their updates to be included in that as well. And excitingly, this year, we also have a new person in the interim for now. So we think that just by virtue of who is in this role, a lot of the issues will be fixed, especially due to the planning and positioning that we've already started. So since then, the lead and I have already committed to meeting bi-weekly with the affiliate administrators. So we just met this Monday. So we can gather feedback as well as keep them updated to make sure that, again, they're included in the planning and the advocacy efforts, and make sure that they aren't feeling left out. And the USC, as well as myself and Sunday personally, are committed to bridging the gap between affiliates and main campus students. But as we've discussed before, there are also discrepancies between softs within main campus as well. So we're also developing plans to address these gaps on main campus as well. But a lot of these decisions do happen on the administrative level and are completely dependent on their administrators' willingness to collaborate with us as well. So we did touch base about this motion at our working group this morning, and we really appreciate you bringing this up because it's definitely something we can work on. And as you can see, this may not be entirely within the USC's purview, but it's definitely a continued conversation, and we'd also be happy to like help facilitate conversations with administration, both on the affiliate and the university side. So everyone's on the same page and feels good about this.
Are there further questions? Go ahead.
Thank you. Just doubling back on Councilor Liakako's last part. This is the exec team right now, and it's fine if you guys don't, but do you have a current standpoint on this motion? So will there be in support or no?
Okay, so sorry. So as Meredith just mentioned, this motion is more complex than it seemed to be right now. Now, I think what was made very clear with the presentations and what Meredith said, for many people in the room, orientation is often a very gray split between the USC and Western. What you're seeing right now and what we're experiencing is a symptom of a lot of the problems that I've experienced from that partnership. Now, what I do support and what I think Meredith as well very much supports is the intent. The intent behind this motion is right on the money. Now, I will be a little candid here. A lot of what Meredith is trying to portray is that some of the things that are included in this motion, the USC doesn't have full purview over. This will eventually have to be us working with the administration. Now, another thing that I also want to highlight that Meredith mentioned is the lead for orientation last year has stepped down, filled a different position, and that's where we've seen a lot of friction with our partnership with Western side of orientation. But again, we have a new lead that's extremely promising that is working to build those relations. But a lot of what we're seeing right now and a lot of the discrepancies and a lot of the frustrations from the affiliates, and I will say equally from our side as well, does have to do with that rub of that 50-50 split percent. If it was all the USC, we would be able to do all of these things with the snap of a finger. But a lot of these things, like say, for example, I'm taking a look at training, that's not within the USC's purview whatsoever. And I like things about like the inclusive and in a positive environment, that is a really large scale about soft culture. Whereas this motion wouldn't affect like, I'm not going to out any team, but a certain soft from treating people. It's so ambiguous. So I so agree with the intent. We support that full force. Now this motion, again, there's some ambiguities, but like that's what we'd most support. Like the intent of it is extreme dead on the money. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
Further questions? Counselor Jones?
I guess this would be for Meredith or Sunday, whoever wants to answer, but you mentioned all the different stakeholders who have positions in running orientation, but whose jurisdiction would it be under to be fixing the uniforms and updating the LST teams and having the correct Instagram pages to be redirected to?
Ari.
Yeah, I'll let Tamsin speak after because she takes care of the comms, but we do hold the USC website as well as the social media. However, as I mentioned, just while I was going over everything, we do meet very regularly to see if they have any updates and stuff. Yeah.
Can I add something before actually Tam go and then I'll add something.
Okay, we also had bi-weekly communications meetings from July all the way up until a week with all the stakeholders talking about communication flows. So that's where we got all the updates from the OWEEK website. Yeah, so, and the affiliates were invited to those meetings.
So is it that the information wasn't given to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Counselor Beecroft? Or, sorry, President Aja.
Yeah. So this is another example of one of those rubs that I mentioned before. I do really want to highlight because I think we're getting into the narrative of like students not including other students and students not providing information. I don't necessarily think that this problem as an integrity is at the fault of any student leader at all. Like I want to echo that at all. It's not on the HFK softs, it's not on our softs. It's more effect of just the symptom of that partnership hasn't been fully fleshed out yet. And it's a problem like was mentioned before, it has happened year after year. So a lot of these issues, what we're seeing is lack of communication from the administration side, than things that are outside of the purview of the USC. So that's a clear example of one of those things, how that may be outside of the student leadership. So I just want to echo to everyone who heard this before, this is not at the fault of any student leaders. I think it's more along the side of like, there's a lot of rubs within the partnership we have, and what we're experiencing right now, and what SOFs are really unfortunately feeling is the symptoms of that rub. So that's a clear example of that. I just wanted to highlight that.
What I was gonna say, also I echo your point just on not it being the fault of any individual student leader. That being said, just I guess a simple point of clarification. Tamsin, you mentioned these bi-weekly meetings, and mentioned that affiliate students were invited to those. Can I just get clarification on who specifically from affiliates were invited to those?
So it was administration. I got the list from the orientation lead last year, who's not in that position anymore. I can't remember off the top of my head who was from Russia, but from Kings, I believe it was Chantel. And then from Huron, I want to say Brooke, although I think Alicia came to them as well.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions at this time? Yes, Councilor Crowe.
Can I say a response or does it have to be a question?
Just questions.
Okay. And this would be a question to you. Yes. Is that the idea? Okay. My question to you is, can you talk a little bit about the purpose of this motion? Because I think it's getting a little bit lost in translation. And the blame is being put on Western when a lot of these motions are really specific to USC. Improved communication, not a big ask. Representation, not a big ask. Those two pieces are from the USC and not Western. I also am wondering if you could touch on the soft uniforms and how the HBK found out about that.
One thing I want to reiterate from what I was saying before is that what we're asking for is a more standardized way of planning a week, which would kind of ease these tensions that Sunday is talking about. And as we're talking about this big web and everything, like one thing that does connect us all in this web, I'm not trying to just be like, it's the USC, but it kind of is the USC coming at it from my affiliate perspective, of course. Yes, you like USC is like privy to like the administrative meetings and everything, but we unfortunately are not coming from an affiliate. So we wouldn't know what is being discussed at these meetings, and students and SOFs also are not receiving this information as well. So that is why we're asking for something a bit more standardized where we wouldn't be missing out on these people who should have been consulted with. And in terms of sorry, what were you asking about in terms of the uniforms? Oh, yes. We found out about our uniforms not being updated actually through a Western Gazette article. And the bi-weekly meetings that were supposedly that we got invitations for, I got confirmation from my head soft that she did not receive an invitation. Of course, I cannot speak on behalf of the administrative person who would have received that invite potentially at Russia, but I'm just going to make that clear.
Question, is that a question? This is a question period. The debate period will happen.
Sorry.
Why
No,
don't we
it's okay.
just why don't we just go to debate period? It just
I answered a question, sorry.
Yeah, no, that was
we can't do that.
question. We're gonna keep this questions, and you're gonna have 2 weeks to go consult. And then we're gonna have more questions and then a debate period. Okay, are there further questions? Yes, go ahead.
Can I ask you how this motion will affect soft culture, in your opinion? Well, to start with, I'm gonna just say one example. I've been a Brusha Soft. I have been asked by, I can't remember what faculty. Again, I'm not blaming the USC or any head soft or anyone for the action of one soft or two softs or whatever it might have been. But I was standing with my frosh and I was asked, why is Brusha here? This again was a soft asking me, a fellow Brusha soft. It was, I can't remember what faculty it was, but this will show that the USC is taking HBK soft concerns seriously. This was a concern I had brought forward years ago, and nothing really happened to that concern when I brought it forward. And again, students see how softs are treated. If HBK students are incoming and seeing that our softs aren't even getting treated with respect at Western, at the Wave in UCC, like it's kind of a little disappointing, I would say, if you're a first year and that's something you see in your first week. So
Are there further questions at this time? Counselor Jones.
This one would be for the USC exec team. I totally understand there being so many layers to something like this. I'm sure we all understand that as students who are in government, not to the same extent, but just like honestly, do you believe the advocacy for affiliates could be better from the USC? Just like genuinely.
Going to take that question? Everything can be improved. So I'll answer that question really directly and say yes. If there's one added caveat I'll put with that, the only addition I would make to this motion, the only addition, because I just told council, like I agree with this intent, would there to be some sort of discussion on us looping in administration. I think trying to solve this problem right now within our capacity of council, it's really hard to do. So couldn't agree more with what I heard from the affiliate constituencies. The only addition I think what would help the executive team and council would be some sort of standardized method working with administration. I think that's a little bit more. That to me would I think put to bed a lot of the concerns that we're hearing around the table. Because like Meredith mentioned, it is a web and we're trying to solve it on the first layer of that web. So if we can loop that up a bit more, that's what I would say. But yes.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Councilor Leakakos.
So this kind of question gets directed both at the USC executive and also the Brusha president. I just want to know how communication was done like post O week in terms of, I guess, the conflict that has been kind of created between HBK not receiving proper communication. I just want to know if there's any efforts to improve of that relationship like post O week.
I think I'm probably the worst affiliate president to be speaking on this just because of the nature of the year I've been in. I haven't been obviously able to focus on this as much. I have been honest that my head soft Melody, who spoke earlier, took most of this under her belt, so I would feel more comfortable letting her speak on it. But obviously, I don't think it's appropriate right now. But do you maybe have an answer from Kings or Huron?
Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry, it was kind of a wordy one. It was kind of a question directed both, I guess, at the HBK and also the USC executive. I just want to know, I guess, how communication, if it even was trying to be restored like post O week. I do understand like communication was kind of, I guess, altered during orientation week, and that's present through this motion. I just want to know if there was like, I guess, steps taken post O week to kind of discuss and reevaluate how O week was done and how communication was presented. That makes sense.
Yeah. So from my perspective and from hearing from my experience from the head soft from Kings, There were several attempts to have communications with the USC exec, and they either wouldn't get a response via email or they would get told they're too busy. And it led to a lot of frustration. And I think it's worth pointing out there has been a massive effort at the affiliates to try to not have this in this body and have it just one-on-one. And there were meetings that they had with the president and the VP, but nothing came out of it. So this sort of felt like the last resort to try to get a little bit of change to happen. But to just sort of circle back and answer your question, really inadequate from King's perspective.
All right, I'm just gonna answer that question. Sorry, the question was, has communication, okay. Personally, I haven't received any requests from the affiliate student leaders since post O week, but as far as changes go, we have like as I said, the orientation lead and I, as directed by Western, have committed to having bi-weekly meetings with the administrators. So I think again, the disconnect may just be between affiliate administrators and their student leaders because we are meeting regularly with them on updates and feedback.
Is that a question, Counselor Yali? Yep, go ahead.
Just going back to the presentation, I was just wondering, what was the kind of response that the HBK softs got from Western's own administration? Because after seeing the presentation, some of the requests are things that are again beyond the purview of the USC. For example, the OWL page, for example, the OWL page. Those are things that I'm assuming belong to Western housing or student experience either. So I was just wondering what exactly was the kind of response that Western gave when you tried to reach out to them.
My head soft just confirmed that they got no response back.
Everyone is allowed 2 speaking periods per period. Have you exhausted yours? Then you can't ask it. Okay, sure.
Sorry, point of information. I guess I heard back from, both the executive and the HPK team. I was wondering if it's possible to get a fact checked, proof of if contact was made or communication, because it's kind of saying both parties are saying no or yes, so it's hard to kind of make an informed decision on that part, if that's even possible.
If like someone can correct me if I'm wrong, I think if they want to put forward evidence they can, but we're not like the police, so we can't make anything say anything. I think that's like the right answer. Like if they want to, they can, but we can't make anyone do anything.
I think so. The governance response is that that's probably way more in the weeds than we really need to be getting on this one. I think if we're at a point where that's what council feels like we need, we probably need to refocus and come back up to the higher level and the governance.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay. Are there questions? Okay. Oh, yes. Is this a question? Or
Sorry. I think the question I was gonna ask is there a consideration to possibly bringing forth the motion in a different way in which, of course, it requests from the USC things that are under the purview of the USC, but then also specifies the kind of advocacy that is wanted exactly by the USC to Western administration, because like it doesn't as far as I can read here, doesn't specifically mention the kind of advocacy that is wanted from Western from the USC to Western administration, because once again, so many, like a lot of things do fall under different groups that are under the Western administration and not the USC.
Wait, was that an amendment?
I think,
Oh.
judging by the silence from the agenda, I think what you're asking for is like kind of the the answer is yes
Yes.
during debate period.
Okay.
You can, anyone can bring amendments to kind of make adjustments.
I just wanted to know if there was like consideration from the parties that brought forth, yeah, to amend it.
Yes, there can be amendments during debate, which will be taking place on the 28th. Are there further questions? Okay. No further questions. Counselor Flaherty,
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Counselor Wang will second. Are there any objections to adjourning? Okay, if there are none, then I'll see you all on the 28th at 7 p.m.